Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard.
Despite the AWS issues, Dallas, we are here for a great show. Division 1 kicks off again on a wonderful Monday night this time, and we're super excited to get this show underway. St. Clair Saints stepping in, trying to prove they can be one of the best teams in the league, and they've got a opponent in front of them that's proving that they can be one of the best offensive opponents in the league, but has been struggling to get those victories under their belt. It's Boise State.
Yeah, Boise State obviously in a bit of a rough patch here, but I mean, considering the kind of stance we have across the field, when you look at the actual standings here, not the widest margin. Realistically, one of those teams that could break their way right back into it. I was looking at the geography between the two teams, and I was thinking, okay, maybe they could be close, or so. They're very far away, but we do have the southernmost candidate team and the northernmost American team going. So I could call this a battle of the border. Whether or not it's a U.S.-Canada thing, I would say more if it's a scoreline thing of whether or not you're getting dropped out of playoffs or not, and or better yet, making it if Boise State pull this one through.
That sentence is even crazier when you realize if you look at the two on the map, they're like 9 states worth of borders away from each other. So it's just as more outrageous.
But they're like 2 feet of a difference, like in terms of longitude.
True. Yeah, the longitude is a little bit different for that one. But like we've said, it's been a pretty interesting set of shows throughout this weekend. Got through both yesterday, but it wouldn't be a collegiate event if there wasn't some complications here or there. But we're happy to make sure we can get at least one show on the road this Monday night. I think this one is going to be a good one. Let's go and throw it on over to our rosters to see who's playing in tonight's showcase. We've already mentioned it is the St. Clair Saints. They have a really accoladed crew behind them. Instinct Tillo, who is one of the only players actually in the top 15 on terms of stats for individual players in all of the Division 1 side for St. Clair Saints. Otherwise, the team overall sits a little bit less than that. JP, a wonder recruit for this roster. Jazzy Kinzantega, Skies, Masters, Skelesis, Daimyo, and KOS for Boise State. And like we mentioned before, for Boise State, they've got a lot of cooks in that kitchen, a lot of IGL and talent for coaching and leadership, but it hasn't led them to be as effective on their defensive side of things. But by goodness, Dallas, they are one of the most effective offensive teams in the league. They were the statistic leader for post-plant percentage wins and getting the plant down percentage wins. They are a outlier amongst outliers when it comes to their attacking side of the pitch.
I mean, most definitely. Consider, St. Clair Saints, what they've accomplished so far in this season. Looking at the likelihood of the tiebreaker that we see between them and West Virginia, seeing what they've accomplished inside this entire season thus far, split better yet. They have the potential to be there. In the same exact regard West Virginia does. We talked about that team, what they could do, saying that they could possibly be, say, number 3, number 4, and how things go, especially with that massive curveball thrown yesterday with Stony Brook shutting down Winthrop University. Yeah. So, it's things along those lines where anything is really possible now. And it purely comes down to rounds. So at this stage, it's Boise State's game to win, but it's also St. Clair's game to lose. So it's this kind of whole entire power dichotomy of whether or not we're going to see standings really shift in some kind of way that could once again alter and shut maybe one of those higher teams down just because they didn't win another game. And next thing you know, hey, things are on its head. So it's crazy enough to think in its own right that this game matters so much in the big scheme of it all, but even more so seeing how maps are going, we're still going to be playing on an older rotation for that. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking at it over the course of this series. How are teams really kind of finding these adjustments? Do they want to go for the old ones? Do they want to kind of go ahead and pander towards these ones that are going to be in the rotation actively now, but also in the next one as well? And sneak little peek there, I don't think we're going to be doing too much of that.
That was the compliments we were giving over to West Virginia, saying, hey, it's going to be something to a new pool. Is that why you were picking Bind yesterday? They were like, well, we're good at every map for our opponents out there. We can play every map, so don't test us. Great interview, by the way. Love having that confidence from a player and a team. But it is a really big question, like you mentioned, and you touched on for just a moment. Here in Division 1, until playoffs get started, starting not next week, but the week thereafter, we will be transitioning over to the new map competitive pool. That is going to lead Lotus and Ascent popping out, and it's going to put in 2 different maps. So what do? Well, you can play a lot of those maps that are leaving, a lot of Ascent and Lotus, and say, hey, we really still like these maps. We know we're good at it. We want to play them while we can. Or you could start to fall into some of those maps that you're going to have to play come 2 weeks from now and start getting that practice in. But that's not the choice here. BSU banning out Haven, St. Clair taking out BIS, which is a solid choice to ban against this Boise State roster because that is the number 1 map they've been playing so far here in Division 1, and it's arguably their best map, so you get rid of their best choice. That leaves the Saints to lock in Lotus, and Boise State say, hey, we will play what is going to be probably a standard pick come into our playoff section. It'll be Bind up for their choice. So our 2 guaranteed maps are Lotus and Bind, which left our bans to lead Corrode and Sunset, so close there on Sunset, to our decider being Ascent, which is just so standard for us.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate to see the kind of standardization. Obviously, I mean, teams just taking advantage of this little kind of grace period they have given to them. But even more so, seeing Boise State opt in, find that initial ban over towards Haven. Clearly, we know that St. Clair is outstanding when it comes to these 3-site maps. They're very smart. They're very good at being on their toes, making sure to kind of transition the goalpost wherever it needs to be. But even more so, knowing that we saw that ban initially at a Boise State, if they do end up winning this match, that's going to be something that they're going to have to ban against every single team, guaranteed right off the rip. Because look at West Virginia, what they were doing yesterday. Look at Stony Brook and what they were doing. I mean, all these teams are so good at making sure to shift their ideas around the map on such an active pacing that if you can't keep up with that, it's going to be difficult. And Lotus, while sure, we had these paper mache walls, we had these nice little kind of avenues that make it very easy to go from one to the next. We see teams, as I said yesterday, making sure to transition that philosophy inside of Haven now as well. And it's kind of seeming like a universal rule of law now where teams are just going to be able to utilize every single inch of the map. And if you're not ready for that, it's going to apply everywhere.
The 2 interviews we had yesterday, Dallas, one of the big talking points for those players are saying how is the utility changes and the overall slowing pace of utility as the prime factor for Valorant really changed the way you're going to go into this. And for both sides, they pretty much mentioned that they're just going to have to play a lot slower, which works sometimes because it means you can have to wait for your recharge for your smoke, 60 seconds from 45. A lot of other utility, a lot more of a timer, right? So it works in some capacity, but it also could greatly facilitate a speedy front. So in my eyes, for actually both the rosters in this series, I have to envision that we'll see a couple of those rounds go into those hefty sprints, go into those really dedicated pushes, those tactical levels of aggression. But I think for the St. Clair side, this is a team that really thrives on this meticulous, just suffocating approach defensively. One of the players you and I have always looked at is JP for that side. When JP goes crazy, this team goes crazy. And when you supplement players in like Jazzykins, where she can just go absolutely off the rip and tear through players, you're expecting this team to go to new heights, but they do this off of this slow, suffocating crawl to deal with pressure on the defensive side of things and to apply pressure on the offensive side of things. So Lotus is arguably the perfect map for them. And they've had trouble on this map against some of the best teams here in Division 1, but every team has had trouble against the best teams here in Division 1, so it's nothing new for them.
I mean, it's something that even then more so if they make sure to double down on those maps, play them against every single one of the best teams that they've played this season so far, well, in that case, you got plenty to work with. You know what works, you know what don't, and even then, on top of it, you can really just put that emphasis on, all right, we got some weaknesses here and there, let's just avoid these parts of the map, or even then more so, find some adjustments, put those into scrims, see whether they work in the same regard, or better yet, if the idea comes to life, make sure to find a better result off the back of it. But as you were mentioning earlier, talking about these kind of little meticulous pressure points, how they really focus things, it's almost like a harmful set of acupuncture. It's supposed to be something that's usually healthy for you, but issue is your guy who is qualified for this put the needles in a little too far, and you may be paralyzed from it. As scary as the thought that is, that's something that nobody wants to experience on the server. You don't want to be locked into a singular place. You don't want to make sure to feel suffocated once you get to that middle of the map. And that was another trend that we've noticed here as of late with the slowdown of the utility, with teams kind of going ahead and being a little more meticulous in where they place it. It also makes them a little less wary of what's going on because they're so focused on something else that their attention is diverted from the big problem, which was these lurking Vipers, constantly getting in those back lines, constantly taking these alternative routes, and constantly opening up rounds, creating that real estate on these sites for these teams to just walk in scot-free.
Well, thank you for reminding me, Dallas, that I now need to cancel my acupuncture appointment for next week. You've now traumatized me for the future of that one. But so stress factors aside, there is a lot of stress in the shoulders for these teams. Like we mentioned, for the Saints, it's really about trying to get in for the chance of that second round bye or that second seed bye. Maryville is all but guaranteed that. I think that is officially confirmed now with the victory for them this week. But you're now looking at it. I think they won this week. There was the prior game. They're statistically likely to win that game. I won't promise anything, but too early here. We didn't see it.
You better knock on some wood or they're going to be knocking your
not
door.
professed on my desk, folks.
Oh
I don't
my
want to
gosh.
jinx them here. But they are more likely going to be that first seed, and that was all but guaranteed. They had the hardest schedule to start the entire season in Division 1, and they beat every team and were undefeated, right? So they were all but locking that in. So every team's looking at that second seed. They're looking to be that team that also gets that first round bye. And if you can't get there, you better hope you're still third or fourth, because you want to have an easier opponent heading into that first week of playoffs. And the first 6 teams here in Division 1 are not anything to scoff at, right? We're really worried about who are going to be those bottom 2. Is it going to be Ohio State? Is it going to be University of Utah? Is Boise State going to accidentally squeak down there as well? Like, these are the rosters you're questioning for Boise State. That's your fear. Being that team somehow that's locked out, being one of those bottom 2 that don't make it into playoffs. And for the opposing side of the St. Clair Saints, you don't want to be the team that has to face an actually competent team that's just one rank below you down in the bracket side of things. You want to be bracket blessed, but you need to bless yourself here and play a darn good game to make sure no mistakes happen so you can come through this perfectly.
I mean, for them, if they find Blowout City, that's going to be perfect for them. But issue is, Boise State understands this. They want to make sure to at least get some rounds on them, because it's one of these times now where clearly you want to win the game. But even if you do find yourself in a 13-2 or something along those lines, the possibility of that, you still want to say, I don't know why, but got a particular grudge against you over there in St. Clair, and we're just going to make sure to draw these rounds out as long as we can, play more and more game just to make it look close, but even then more so just to dampen your chance of getting further up there. So this game could essentially be null by the end of it if you guys play your heart out and still just kind of feel like it's for nothing.
All right, so all of these points are made about the potential future here for Division 1 Dallas and about where they lie and where they need to lie at the end of this. But let's talk a little bit more about the first map we're heading into. Lotus, a map where we talk so much about the territory crawl that we see out of the St. Clair Saint side and the value they can gain from that. How do we see Boise State counteract that? What agent selection do we need to see for both sides to play to their strengths while also simultaneously counteracting the strengths of the opposition? For Boise State, your offense is unquestionably good. It did get completely shut out the other day by Maryville, but it still is a solid enough offense. It's the best team in the league. You're looking at them and they're already a scary force. How are you going to take down a team like St. Clair Saints and get enough of a lead in your attacking half so you can make up for the mistakes you'll make on your defense, which has been a consistent thing for this roster? It can't be too many cooks in the kitchen, which is the exact problem we mentioned for them last weekend. Too many players only having ideas, communicating. You have one people maybe want to move in this direction, so you see them kind of linger off on their ISO, and then they fall apart because they get picked off too early, and then the Boise State roster tends to struggle to recover from a moment like that. How do we nip that in the bud, Dallas?
I think realistically, you need to start things off with making sure to watch your back, because as you talked about earlier, I mean, things are looking good on the attacking side. You don't have to freak out too much about what is ahead of you. I even mentioned it prior. You have to think about what is behind you. And we have seen so many players just going ahead, lurking through, find themselves in those back lines where, especially on Haven, you need to have that cipher. That has to be a guarantee. I mean, we've seen the KJ be thrown up every here and there, a couple plays being made with that. I mean, and KJ has her own special uses. So obviously, the lockdown, that's great once you get it on the field. The turret's going to provide a little bit of kind of cover and give something to turn your head away for a second. But the side from the attacking side is going to provide a lot more, I feel. So making sure to really put those trips everywhere. Keep every single corner checked as best you can. But besides that, on the attacking side, the ISO, I feel like, isn't really going to be doing too much here for Boise State when you look at the kind of frags that are going underway here, the kind of team that you're dealing with, when you look at the kill numbers, and when you look at the overall standings of an individual player-to-player basis, you have to see that, well, even though St. Clair isn't that high up on the board in terms of standings, their individual prowess is more than almost anybody else's, on the same level of Stony Brook, I would say. So knowing how they go, it's one of those things where they just got to make sure that they are pushing the pedal as hard as they can. They really need to press the problem on the attacking side, because once defense comes around, that's where St. Clair's really, once again, as you said, that acupuncture comes underway. They're going to be poking and prodding at different points just over and over again, waiting. And even then, against the best teams, we saw it yesterday, people getting picked off for absolutely nothing for no reason. So it's one of those things where you can't give that up in the same regard either. Haven is one of those maps now where you got those longer lanes, you got a lot more kind of standardized approach to these sites. But I think, honestly, with the games we saw yesterday, with these new update changes, use the whole map. I love seeing teams head towards that B site, then make a deviation, go through those defender side spawns to find their control on the A or C, and forcing the opposing teams back into these main lanes, forcing the opposing side to go find them own way, kind of playing and circumnavigating the entire map and the problem at hand. We don't see a lot of people do that, but it's such a kind of unorthodox way of playing that it's enough to really put other teams in a confusing scenario where they don't know how to answer because they don't have the proper setup for a retake there.
So just a week ago, well, technically 8 days ago, last Sunday, if we want to be more direct here, it's a esport, we'll be a little bit more clinical on it. We did see the St. Clair roster head to the map of Lotus, which is the map 1 pick, and it was their pick in that series as well. They lost this map 13-5, Dallas. They were facing Winthrop, though, but this also was Winthrop's academy team. This was the one I was really highlighting, saying Case was going crazy. You had Hollywood drop 20 kills on map 1, right? These are individuals that were stepping up, but we saw great glimpses of just yesterday. But they were doing that against St. Clair, a team we are accolading at such a high level that unfortunately just wasn't able to beat the odds out. Now, on second map of Haven, it was a lot closer. I think it was like 13-10, and that is the case. But their agent selection was interesting for St. Clair because they did not have JP in the roster. They had Abrix in there instead, and they had them on that Omen. So there was a slight differences across the board. But I expect to see that Vice online, expect to see the slow crawler that's so powerful in a map like Lotus, not present in whatsoever. Instead, a double duelist with the Neon and the Reyna of all things, which is an interesting choice. Seth was, of course, over towards that Viper and expect him to do well, and they were sitting middle of the pack, but then Tello on that Fade, and then in the Omen from Abrux there for the the Omen for Abrix. Sorry, I'm having to read multiple things at once here. You're having so much go on, and I think for St. Clair, this is not the idea or the strategy they necessarily wanted right off the rip. They were forced into something a little bit different, and it just really worked for that level of aggressiveness we saw from Winthrop's academy team that we witnessed just yesterday in their series against West Virginia. So what is going to change? Boise State's offense is nearly just as aggressive. They're maybe not as clinical or as high in finesse in the fragging department, but with the great assistance they have with the gunners they have with the patch that made gunplay that much more powerful, they're still a very ever-present threat that you need to be constantly aware of. So you have to try to change that up. Bring back in JP on the Vice, get the information, slow crawl out, have Seth and JP hang out together, buddy systems, split them off once they get through A main, just start to apply that pressure like you mentioned towards B. The offense is big, but then the question turns over to defense. If they're just power hungry and they're just bulldozing into that C site every time where JP is, you're gonna pay the price, which then turns into what can Vice do with the major nerfs to the Vice's kit and the lack of information you gain from that Arc Rose. Well, you could maybe transition to a different Sentinel, but I don't think we're at the state of the game for Lotus just yet, where that feels like a necessity. But the question really isn't for us to answer, it's for those teams to answer themselves what's going to work for them best.
Right, and even then, I mean, talking about kind of that mid-season swap, we saw Jazzykins coming into play here over the side of St. Clair. Not really there initially, but then came in later down the line because you talk about kind of that swap up of JP and Tyga and everybody else and kind of how they play that little revolving door depending on the map pick that comes through. And last time we saw Lotus, at least here on stream, and me specifically more so, that was Jazzykins playing the Breach. That was a double initiator that we hadn't really seen prior to that, where the Vice was also still in play as well. And it was so strong, it was so good, so proficient. And I mean, that's something that we've seen Jazzykins do historically. But the problem is that Rolling Thunder isn't free anymore. You can't cover an entire site with it. It's much more narrow. Even then, the stuns that come into play, they are a lot quicker. They deteriorate much faster. While the startups there, I mean, sure, great trade-off. Maybe. If you're fast enough to meet it. But if you're not, that's another thing. So St. Clair, depending on what their positioning looks like and what their kind of agent composition is going to play into, they have to go ahead and kind of turn up that speed dial a notch. Because if they're not there to meet the kind of utility they need to play, it all comes down to more of like a snap-to-snap basis rather than just being able to throw stuff at the problem when it presents itself. So, as you mentioned, the Vice coming to play there. Still, I think has some influence, but you just got to work a lot more on your audibles and making sure that things are locked in between your teammates instead of just using it as some kind of a recon dart. And, well, for that Breach, I don't know if we're going to be seeing that this week. That's something that's going to be a bit of a toss-up. I think some more emphasis on the controllers. We do see the Omens. We do obviously see the Vipers come into play as well. And making sure to double down on those could be a bit of a swap-up that you need because the near site could provide just as much value, if not a little more, considering it lingers longer.
Yeah, they didn't bring out the breach in that one, but they also weren't playing with Jazzykins, right? Which is kind of the big thing. And I think with the performance we saw from that, it would still be a spectacular agent to bring out with that kit. And St. Clair played really to its strengths. And that was even the questions we were asking in the interview. How does it feel, you know, having them step in, playing a role that's maybe non-standard and kind of something that was really good on Lotus back in the day, but it's kind of taken a back seat to a lot of the other agents and kind of the standard compositions. And they were just said straight up, we just play to the strengths that we have. We have them stepping into a system that's already built, but we've been out building a system back the other way. But you know, a player's good enough to do that, we're going to go ahead and do so. And that's a system that I love to see working in tandem against really good teams here within Division 1. But speaking of Division 1, a player had to unplug and replug a PC or swap over a PC. Something's going on behind the scenes. But with that being said, we're going to take a break before they get that ready. So don't go anywhere. Never mind. Game is ready. We're jumping straight into this one. This is esports, baby. It's just how it works. Let's get the action underway here, Dallas. And finally, no more guessing about what we're going to see for our agent selection. But it is bind up first, and it will be the Chamber online of all things here from JP. This is a player we've been saying needs to go up and show up, and here they are. Nope, it is in fact Chamber on Lotus of all things.
There.
Well, the Chamber can make sense here, but we do also see the breach coming through for St. Clair. So that's the one thing that we was kind of discussing for a question mark to be present here overall. But even more so seeing the side from both these teams, knowing what they're working with. It makes sense. It adds up. I mean, the game plans are there. The philosophies are in place, but the gunshots have to be there to follow. So with pistol round gun underway, let's drop those gates. Let's get into the match, and let's see what kind of blood can be shed in the process.
Well, your first point of contact in a pistol round is arguably the most important one because that will scream out where players will be. If it's a double swing and you get both off the board, then there's seemingly a large gap in the proverbial armor that defensive side will have. But it's a lot of really just patience from Boise State, which is not something we've seen a lot from them in a map like Abyss, where they play hyper-aggressively. Gate crash to get away once they grab the ult, or macro economy for Boise State, a focal point. And this is what we love to see. They'll likely move down towards A as well, but they don't have a lot of trust that there is total absence from this St. Clair side on defense, and Tillo will keep them honest, at least when it comes to top of stairs, getting some damage down range, but it's a pistol round, and at this range, it's hard to hit those, and even if it did, it's not going to do that much at the end of it now.
Yeah, I mean, already going ahead, trying to lock things down, especially towards that back cubby. We already see Boise State trying to press the pedal on what they really can get themselves. But it is St. Clair with their board in control. Kill feed going completely in their direction, with the exception of Skeletons trying to find one, can't find the second, and it's Jazzy to shut things down. So not a perfect round, but pretty darn close for St. Clair to kick things off, and a nice little stat booster for them and a confidence booster on top of it to see what they can rock with in the next one. I'm happy to see that they're not going ahead and overinvest in the economy in any kind of way, because as I said, some of these teams like to go ahead and establish it early, really find this game of disrespect, get these full rifles into play there, because I mean, keep in mind, Jazzy has a half armor and could opt for the gun herself, but instead decides to give it to Instinct, which I mean, rightfully so. You want to go ahead and maybe get a showstopper in play here pretty soon, but it really comes down to whether we actually see the matchups being made on these particular sites. And well, from the looks of it, blast back over towards C-Mound, letting you know that players are present on that defending side for Boise State, but well, they're the ones who are going to have to swing into this if they opt to.
JV's got pro experience, and you're looking to see that shine here against this Boise State offense. It's not them to find the first blood despite having that sniper up in their hands. Instinct's getting pressured early, trying to go for a boost pack to get away from things, but unfortunately just couldn't do so. And JP can quickly use their rendezvous to get back to safety and level up a second level for their side. It's off with another player. The flank now is being made. One player in B main, that was Daimyo, but their doppelganger of Taiga is quick to eviscerate him, and Skelsis is by their lonesome till around the bend. And clone on clone, well, what do you see? And St. Clair finding the second round win after their pistol only dropping a single weapon. Though a Phantom, I'm sure it was collected by the rest of the roster.
And most definitely still in play there. Obviously, Instinct able to manage to pick it up, but seeing Boise State still, they are the ones who have so many weapons to work with now. I mean, clearly the full rifles across the board, Vandals for every single one of them, and it is only Skelesis who has managed to find a kill thus far. So this is the time for the rest of the team to really kind of step up to the plate, make sure to start hitting a couple of those shots, and really get the taste of what blood really tastes like. So I think, I mean, seeing how things are going to go, the matchup, St. Clair have always been ready for it, funny enough. You saw the fight towards C-Mound, now you see the fight towards A main. It's like they have a bit of a read on where these spawns are looking, and, well, that's just not the case. They're too busy being in the server, locking in, understanding the VOD, seeing what the patterns are playing like, and, well, giving these reads all to themselves.
Broncos need to find a safe point of entry in round 3. They need to go in fiercely and start kicking. The Broncos need to be bucking, but they got to do so safely, and this is where the St. Clair side is just doing a good job of absolving any pressure that could conceivably heading their way. Taylor with a spray through that smoke. You had to guess somebody was in there. You don't just put that there at that distance to leave it up for nothing. That's a great play by them to set it up for themselves, and Boise State lose out on the first blood for a round that should have been an easy frag for them, and it drops a weapon that is collectible with that second dark cover going deeper into lobby, where now, once that dissipates, you could very well have a frag, but they'll let that be tossed backwards here to Jazzykins, and Scalesis will not have a person to peek towards just yet. They'll go for a high-low flash maybe here. Goes big, doesn't get a full hit, but it won't matter. Tillo still gets the upper hand, and this Boise State offense is really no movement forward, and they've been stuck within their own domain of attacker side control without even being able to fight for that middle ground territory, that no man's land, as St. Clair go through round 3, running through Boise State for a flawless finish.
Wow, just upgrades across the board, looking for what they really need there, and just a flawless round to capitalize it. I mean, that's just the cherry on top, making sure that you're sharing everything side by side with your team, making sure you're all on the same page there, not only in an economic sense, but also in terms of the, well, arsenal available to you. And that's always going to be looking good for them. But a 3-0 start, that's a little diminishing there for Boise State, because, I mean, we talk about the zigzag. We talk about this kind of back and forth, the flip-flop that we see so often to these teams finding themselves in an eco, find themselves in a bye, and making sure to kind of really twist the tide when they need. But round number 4 expectedly should follow suit and once again give another over to St. Clair. So that's going to be a kind of a tricky maneuver, all things considered, if we do see Boise State not really lock in what these ecos are going to look like, because they need to make sure to at least kind of knock some of these players out. But every round has had at least 4 players standing at the end of it by now.
Yeah, it's not enough of an effective front for Boise State. That has to get fixed, and, you know, it's only 3 rounds in, so you can harp on it as much as you want, but the story is still yet to be written, and the past can't be changed, so they kind of have to deal with that. It's a tech timeout. That's what's going on right now, just for the folks for you to find out. No, but one thing that was really great about that round was that dark cover that I had mentioned just outside that A lobby door. It's not placed the same way the second one was, right, where it's level with the entry into lobby. In fact, it's placed forward, which leaves a slight area not covered by that dark cover that you could crawl behind and get towards pillar. That is a perfect play by St. Clair to say, we know you see that. We left that there for a reason, folks. You walk into that one, we know exactly where to spray through, and it gives you that first frag, which gives you a gun, which then sets up the next 2 to 3 kills back in attacker's spawn. That is exactly what you're expecting to see. The suffocating, you play on our terms, you play on our demands style that the Saints know they're good enough to proclaim, and they just have to follow suit with it. And it's real tough to do that against the best teams in Division 1. Maryville aren't one to fall for it. They won their series outright. West Virginia is a team that has trouble with it sometimes against those best teams, but can absolutely overcome it. Winthrop does the exact same thing. Even their academy team obviously was able to overcome it just last week. So where is it going to work? It's going to work against some of these other teams, and we're seeing them try to evolve that. Next level play for a next level team. The growth of the Saints, I think, is really high potentially, but we need to be able to see this happen against teams more than just Boise State or Ohio State and the rosters that they've had really good series against, but working against those other teams, like even the Winthrop Academy team, I think would have been a great learning point for them to have that. It's unfortunate they didn't play with their lineup there I think they were necessarily expecting to head into that one with.
Yeah, and I mean, this is going to be a learning point for Boise State regardless. I mean, looking at this team and not only seeing the rest of the teams that are going to be above them, but there is some level of disrespect from a lot of the teams across the league when it comes to being in the server. You can't hold these players to a particular standard. They're going to play the game to win, but they're not going to do it in a malicious way. They're going to do it in a way just to make sure to establish an advantage once it's given to them. So seeing how things are going already, pushing the agenda, bringing that problem to Boise State's front door. And, well, once again, that's the disrespect I was saying they need to take advantage of. Find the kills. Make sure to punish St. Clair for ridiculous pushes when they feel like they can't fight back, because everyone in this league can shoot, and that puts Boise State in the lead of player numbers that they need to win a round.
JP making a ton of noise, unfortunately, on the approach over here. Dora has been open, and now you've got somebody in square holding close around the bend. KOS will stick here for the spike plant, and JP has to make sure they clear this, but don't check their corners. Daimyo, 3 kills in this round, and the early movement by instinct for the side of St. Clair to progress into that A lobby to fight for that middle ground and then try to claim that for their defensive side of things fall short because they overextended their welcome and handed over a weapon to Boise State's roster. And like you said, if a team has gunners, and every single team has gunners in this league, they can do anything with anything, and you just cannot fall into this false sense of security, this lulled level of safety, and it will be a round acquiesced over to Boise State. Off the back of it, now they'll also have weapons against St. Clair, who have actually brought an operator out here to try to have some sort of big boomstick to work with.
I mean, rightfully so. We're expecting a chamber on the field, and an operator's going to come into play somewhere, but really where? That's the big gamble when you're dealing with 3 sites so consistently. Like, so many teams like to go for this Haven pick, like to go for the Lotus pick, but seeing how things are going so far, not really the case too much, because that operator isn't finding much play, because you're getting nothing but kills across the board once again for Boise State. A great push, a great little kind of alleviation of attention towards that secret hole, knowing that Jazzy's there, knowing that a player is going to be in the midst of this B site, because they want to swing out, they want to contest this, they want to create a bit of a roadblock, and with one of those players having an operator, you can't have much of an actual game plan to retake this unless we see just an absolute unit of a headhunter coming into play.
What can you possibly do to retake an objective as difficult as this one? Well, Master's already low, so just take a single round. There's that pop flash from Jazzy to attempt it. 2.5 seconds forward. It's an easy one when you get full flash. Just unfortunately not able to flick it over. And with the frag back the other way towards Jazzykins, JP says, yeah, I couldn't pull off the 1v2 the round before. I'm not going to try a 1v3. I'll hold on to a weapon, rotate elsewhere, and then we'll see what we can scrounge up, especially considering I have an operator. But this maybe leads into the question I've posed every week, Dallas. If you save a weapon like this in moments like this, where the team has a questionable buy up for the next round, what are they going to do? Will they force around this weapon, or will you do what we saw just yesterday, where you then are forced to save again with this player staying alive and running away from the whole team and letting them plant and stick out the whole defuse? Or will you just say, hey team, let's buy stingers, let's get up close, and let's just try to get some early frags with this operator where we can? And a lot of the battle has been here towards A lobby, and it seems to be the exact same thing here as Boise State Prime. All 5 here in A lobby.
I mean, third time's the charm, right? You tried the first time, didn't really work out all that well. Tried the second time, it ended up working. So maybe third time it can be flawless, because that last one wasn't, but it was darn close. So seeing how things are going, I mean, good looks for Boise State. They understand really where their strong suit could be, because knowing that mound fight, it's not really something you're going to be taking. You know the chamber station over there. You know the operator's going to come into play, and especially when you have Skelesis on that Odin, those are almost kind of free kills up for grabs there. Issue is now Tyga's stationed in the area and is finding the necessary kills on that rotating door. But Instinct is left between a rock and a hard place, or ready a box and a secret door with lots of utility coming the direction of him.
Oh, Skelis with the spray through, not just for the first onto Instinct in that spray, but now transitions to Tyga as well. 3 to their name, they'll have to get 4. It would have to be an ace for this player. Skelis has to do all by themselves. Casters aren't good at math. I apologize. She'll have to tear through both JP and Tillo, who's crawling around the bend. Skelesis will only have a single bullet really worth to survive. And the Odin isn't necessarily a one-shot kill gun, Dallas. You're really preying on the spray through, and it will just take a single phantom round at that range to get the job done. Tillo gets their 3K back the other way. And a 4th round for St. Clair, at least recovering from the one prior that Boise State were able to squeak through and still managing to hold on to a weapon that they really would like to have. And you can see here, the St. Clair side has their own little venue that these players and I guess fans here are tuning in to watch, to support their roster and to support the team, to see them come out at a victory here and hopefully increase their margin here in Division 1, a lot like we've seen a lot of the teams this weekend do.
Love the garage doors. Love the way they can. I mean, that can open up, get some fresh air, walk in and out.
You can also see through it.
I mean, hey, that doors you usually don't see through too much to. It's a choice stylistically, but I mean, hey, talking about seeing, we're seeing bullets go right through brains right now, because Boise State once again right back in the next round and ready to rumble on this A side. They are super persistent on this side of the map, and I'm curious to know when St. Clair's going to come up with a solution for it, because once again, JP's stationed over towards C, rightfully so, because that's the mound spot, but there's a much longer lane you can work with, my guy, and there's a lot of players asking to get picked off from it.
Ooh, Skies is already low, unfortunately. Not a necessary shot with the operator. You'll hear from the shadows being used. That actually moves them off towards stairs to apply some tertiary pressure. Headhunter will be forced to take some spam shots to clear out the Prowler chasing towards them. And you don't want to lose all audio. You don't have to worry about that. And Daimyo will go for a heavy swing, low on HP, and it's a classic right click to finish the job. And this should give safety for JP to rotate and just rush away. One of the points I made heading into this one on Lotus was, hey, Boise State, you got to get enough attacking round wins to make that second half recoverable, because your offense is just statistically that much of a better side for you in comparison to your defense. So winning rounds like this, very important. And if it just requires them to continue to hit the A site and St. Clair aren't going to find the solution to absolve that pressure and keep them off of the objective, all the power to you, Boise State. Rear your heads through to that site, continue to take it over and find your victories, because St. Clair, these are moments where you would maybe expect to see JP rotate that way and maybe leave one of your initiators off towards C instead, just in case, so they could use that operator a lot earlier than later.
I mean, you're having to make a lot of sacrifices when you're not running the Viper on either side. That's a big thing, just in its own. Where we're not seeing teams able to slow things down too much. We're not seeing too much of an actual wall being drawn, not even metaphorically, but even then physically by this utility from either one of these squads. So it's one of those things where we talk about those pressure points. We're talking about what team's really going to do it, and we talked about what St. Clair can do on that attacking side and kind of change that up on a round-to-round basis. But Boise State, for the past couple, making sure to really hammer in that A side. Just go once, go twice, go 3 times. Break the mold. Go 4. Why not? But as I said, 3rd time's a charm. Found the formula, you found out how it worked, and, well, when St. Clair finally invests into it, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to plan over on C, and St. Clair's in a situation where they have to go for a retake, and even with the Rolling Thunder, which is smaller, it seems like you not only missed a player, but their head in the process. Master finds 2. You look at the kind of recovery coming through in another avenue, but it's still finding lots of value because the Nightfall comes down. KOS is looking for anybody to swing, and well, from one angle to the next, you find the first there on JP. It is nothing but Tillo up on that site. And that spike, well, it's going to be diffused because from the heavens, the classic right click comes.
Oh, my goodness. Tillo knows that they can't bring out their weapon. They have a little bit of time to hop up on the box and catch them off guard, and the FOV isn't wide enough vertically for you to see anything. So not only do St. Clair get away with a round win there and recover after Boise State basically blew every piece of utility they could at that C site to take it, even though they had it without needing much utility to do so, to hold on to it, I should say. They are able to get in there, defuse, and also hold on to the operator. That is such a costly weapon, and it's been a problem for St. Clair in terms of keeping consistent for. So very big value round for them and for Boise State. That C site, well, if really you need every ultimate to hold on to it and you still fail to do so, I don't see any problem with them rushing back over here towards the A side, as it will be a pursuit here into main once again. So you try to use the tether play to keep that Omen honest, but Taiga has a play of their own and will just barely eke away the visual of Master, who got hit by their own paranoia for their teammate.
Yeah, just unfortunate circumstances here for Boise State to kick off this round, but I mean, hey, a bit of a push could really turn the tide for one side or the other, but it's not really resulting in too much in Boise State for this round because, well, they're the ones who have to push all the way up to his site with some good tanks coming out there for the Marshall. It makes some incredible leeway for that Odin to just find some road kills.
Oh, spray through. AOS in the same spot their teammate was 2 rounds prior. Tillo is exceptionally low. Paper mache walls, but it will not matter. It'll still be Tillo to find that final frag against the Odin. It's exactly what you're expecting to see. 6-3, they've guaranteed an even half Dallas. We've talked a lot about how Boise State's offense is super effective. We didn't get to see it well against Maryville. We got to see glimpses of that greatness against Winthrop, but it's seemingly on the map of Lotus not working out in their favor just yet. But with 3 rounds left, they could break even and maybe show off a little bit of that defense powerhouse they've been trying to work towards just the same. But this round may spell trouble. They pulled off an eco before. Can they do it twice in the first half here on Lotus?
Well, getting those strings of rounds together would obviously be huge to make sure for a 6-6 half to come underway, but you got to make sure the economy's there on your side. And I don't know. St. Clair has a little bit saved up. Clearly, JP's been holding on to the operator like it is his sole reliant for paying in this server, but anything else beyond that's been a bit of a question mark for the rest of the St. Clair roster. One thing right now Boise State knows is they have to play close quarters with the gun and the economy at their hands right now because, well, you don't have much to work with. And the Sheriff can definitely find those one-hit headshots around this site, but what does it better? A Vandal at all sites, and even then a showstopper too if you find the right angle.
US round the bend here. Their heads lopped off and shot some Skelesis. What a clean target to hit and connect. But unfortunately, you're still being cordoned off here by the breach of Jazzykins. Skelesis is looking around to try to get some idea of where players could be and who else with Tillo for the finale once again. I've seen those Boise State rooms that they're currently playing with, and they keep a little bit dark to keep them in the zone, but it's definitely something, Dallas. We got the player cams in once again this weekend, and it's great seeing them, and then once a flash actually comes through in-game, it's like those real D4D theaters where it actually hits you IRL because the monitors are so bright in a dark room. It's really illuminating a lot of what we've been seeing. As we have, I believe that's the coach, or is that Seth?
That's
the side of St. Clair. Completely different area than where the rest of the roster is right now. But they're going to have a timeout they're going to have to deal with for Boise State to maybe converse about how the next two rounds have to pan out for their offense.
It's funny to say that maybe, you know, it's Seth, and he's over in the green room, but it's St. Clair College, man. Every room is a green room. That's their entire school. Did you see that audience cam, dude? It looked like they were looking at a massive Lucky Charms commercial, just nothing but leprechauns in front of them. But, so, you know, look at that, dude.
It's so green. We were actually questioning this beforehand. Do they just have a giant PNG of the St. Clair Saints logo just like spinning on a giant screen? It's not even the gameplay
nice
here.
LED sign, I think.
It's really, I feel like they've got something gorgeous in there. And again, I love those garage doors. Anyone that's not related in the esports scene, right, and just passes by can see everything that's going on here, right? And I feel like that's such a cool thing. But round gets underway once the timeout is done. And Dallas, what do you think they had to talk about for offense? The A site's not really working anymore. St. Clair keyed in. Where are they going to test next?
Well, we already saw them kind of leaning towards that B side, at least testing it, because they've gone over towards the C side. They made sure to get into a post-plant situation, so they know they can at least, you know, stretch themselves out and get the spike down in multiple areas of the map. It's just more so about the post-plants now, and more so just finding out what you can manage and what you have the economy in play. Problem is, Taika doesn't care about your economy, doesn't care about what kind of game playing you got. If you're going to peek him, you're going to die. So that's something you have to start to avoid. And, well, Omens are the slippery players you can't really avoid too much because they're always going to be somewhere. That From the Shadows can be within the reserve at all times. But what you can do is station a player behind. And this was the next point that was going to come underway, was a matter of leaving a player there. They talked about the Cyphers, what the Cyphers can manage, what they can do, how they can really just trap these players when people get too overzealous. And St. Clair, having that lockdown of players better than an actual PC utility, they're going to try to push your spawn. They're going to try to find these wraparounds. They're going to try to catch you in these moments where you're tripping and just completely take you off guard from your own spawn. St. Clair, not really going to let that happen, even when the shots are attempted to make sure they're not successful, but that lets you know everything you need to. JP finds that first death there. You saw that secondary player. It really just comes down to 1v1 of Jazzy, and the decay is in play, but it doesn't matter when the shots are so darn perfect.
Clean as a whistle, St. Clair Saints. Well, one more round left on their defense, and they could bring out the coveted 9-3 splits. But it will be Boise State trying to force still for the chance of 4. And the defense has been holding strong. Eventually things have to break on the A side. And we saw that over and over again, right? It was a problem. It was an issue. JP was really slow to rotate in. And they finally realized, Dallas, that if they can just keep a couple players alive, not go so aggressive, you know, so hard in the paint, try to dunk every single kill instead of, you know, shoot it from the three-point line for more points, then they'll have the ability to get JP over in good time to assist and facilitate a solid return for a site for a post-plant position retake, or still keeping them off the objective entirely and watching for the eventual rotate over towards an opposing site. And it works. The Saints ride through a very good first half, and with a little bit more of a break, I believe a technical timeout here once again. There's just one more round to go, and their defenses look cleaned enough as they've recovered after the Boise State really good start to get a couple 4.
And unfortunately, it's not a stage of the map where you can actually make these adjustments in the attacking side too much. I mean, surely you want to pull it out for at least one more to manage to get that round, but even then still, you got to look at what St. Clair's doing. They are making sure to push up, and not only so far into the attacking side, but once you find, like I said, Taiga managing to get 2 right there off rip towards that B main, not even really inside of that site, just more so pushing up right towards that line, right to that crate, and saying, no, not only one of you are giving me your life, but two, that's a great bargain. I will take that any chance I can get. And it's one of those things where Boise needs to understand that they can't really be playing slowly enough where they're giving these kills over. They need to really push the pedal. They need to really press the problem towards these guys that are extending out of these sites a little more so, and make them respect their own lines. Because keep in mind, the defense needs to be tamed to a degree. They need to be put inside of those sites. And if you're letting St. Clair roam out, Boise State's never going to be able to actually touch those sites just because they're never going to get the leeway of the actual main entrances to those to begin with.
So what's your progressions, right? That's kind of what we're seeing right now for Boise State. And in the pistol rounds, we saw them kind of working through that. Playing the macro economy, getting Iltorb off towards C, slowly stalling out, eventually going for a big push around towards A, but then the gunfights went in the favor of the Saints, and it kind of went the other way. But we saw them playing this slower, built-up style. When they started to get guns and utility, they've just kind of gone pretty up forward. So I'd like to see them default to a 2-1-2 split, poke and prod each direction. If Taiga's going to go and get 2 kills right off the rip and eviscerate a push, let that happen with just a single player, right? Or use your utility in a way that can be recharged 60 seconds later. You forget the time bank, yes, is working against you, but the moment you get the spike down, Father Time's on your side, right? He's a fickle mistress. You just need to work in your way, the way that works. And I know that seems like a really stupid and simple statement all at the same time, but if you're an attacking team, you don't play on the other team's terms. You play on your terms, and you have to make sure that's known, whether that's getting kills or whether that's forcing a point and working through your progressions and not theirs. And that's really what I think this first half has been. Boise State starting something, but then St. Clair going, yeah, you've fallen into my trap card, rubs hands together like an evil villain, $1 million, whatever the case is. I think Boise State just have to key into, hey, don't let it feel like we're being lulled into a sense of security. Let's just play our game. Make sure we play that strong. And I think it's even more important to move over to defense, where it should arguably always be your terms that you're playing on, because they got to come to you.
I mean, just seeing how things are really going, obviously making sure to punish these St. Clair players once they do that. A bit of a different perspective in how they're going to be taking these rounds. The judge in hand, they're making sure to close the gap, know when these players are pushing up, but it really comes down to whether or not we're going to see these lines respected. And that's the funny thing about St. Clair. It's almost like they're listening, because on the B site, they're not extending out. But look at JP over there towards C Mound, wanting to find those fights, wanting to really get a taste of that blood. And that's not really an angle that you can push the judge or push the problem or really make an issue here for Boise State.
Seemingly another tech issue. Something's going on here. I mean, one player had to switch an entire computer, Dallas, at the start of this. So something's obviously happening. And that poor audience in the St. Clair for their side, stuck in that giant green room that's not stuck in any capacity. They're there willingly, and they even have little signs with faces on it. Looks really cool. Love seeing the support for their system there.
Of course.
You know, we have all these things going on. But I do seriously think that the second half is like the most important one ever for Boise State, because if you see, you know, University of Utah, Ohio State eke out one more victory in one of their matches in the future here for this next week, because they've already, you know, lost it for this week, it could very well be your team that is unfortunately barreling towards not being able to make it into playoffs. So that story is yet to be written, but it's mostly through. We're reaching the resolution. The climax has really felt like it's been there. And for a lot of these teams, the climax was early in the season for the league, and now they're just kind of working through a lot of those other teams at the bottom of the bracket. And that's kind of where the Saints feel like they are, but you can't let it feel that way. You got to make a surprise, you know, somehow Palpatine returned moment here if you're Boise State, and show up and put your money where your mouth is here.
Yeah, another big thing, I mean, honestly, finding just in the big scheme, as you mentioned, every single team and kind of where the caliber is and where they stand, I think, honestly, a map would be just not only breaking the standings as a whole, but breaking the entirety of what I think is just the back end of the website we have, because we are so adjusted to seeing 2-0s from every single team. I'm even double checking now, like looking at every single previous week and saying, what's going on here? Are we going to see maybe you want to? There it is. West Virginia and Stony Brook. Besides that, I mean, we saw week some one preluding that, but beyond there, it has been nothing but 2-0s across the board, constantly, where it feels like everybody got their one little hiccup there at the beginning of the season. And beyond that, they're saying it has to be nothing but from perfection.
Yeah, and I think the craziest the craziest part is when we were talking on Tilproof for the podcast, we were breaking down just how weird it's felt this season. We're like, what is the match of the entirety here of Division 1? What was the best match we saw? We're like, well, we would hope that it would go to Maryville and Winthrop, but that wasn't at all what happened. We couldn't give it to them. We gave it to the Ohio State and Utah game in week 1 that very same week. Goes to all 3 maps, was competitive through all 3 maps. That's the 2 teams sitting at your bottom of your bracket. Turn it over, and yes, that West Virginia Stony Brook game was good until map 3 when things started to look really wrong and they just didn't really have Corrode prepped. But prior to that, that was arguably the best 2 maps you'll ever see. But it's been a lot of 2-0s, and Division 1, I don't want to say we're like plagued by that as an issue. It's nice to see teams getting the job done, but it's competitive matches where you're saying, hey, these 2 teams on paper, they should be seeing 3 maps. You should be winning your map picks. It's really hard to say it's a total toss-up, and yet it never is. And it's like, it's so much frustrating as a talent when we do our pick'ems and we're like, hey, who do we think is going to go? And we're right nearly every week. And it's like, well, now Nerds is the only one throwing out things that are wrong, and they're doing that off vibe, right? So it doesn't even really count that they're wrong.
Jackson chose wrong yesterday.
Jackson did get one wrong yesterday.
Jackson was really confident on being like, okay, yeah, I think Winthrop's got this. And the rest was like, no, sir. That's Stony Brook, big dog. We right. But, I mean, it's because of these, a lot of maps, though, keep in mind, even though we see 2-0s, that doesn't really tell the whole story, obviously. These maps are so competitive. They're so close. A lot of 13-10s, 13-11, 13-9s, these kinds of margins where it's just small things that add up. And at this kind of league, that means so much. So, of course, talking about mistakes, JP getting picked off so early against a Stinger, that's one of those things that could definitely turn the tide and give Boise State a game where St. Clair have themselves a lead.
Boise State, called them the Bucking Broncos earlier. They need to get in, and the blue wants to try to do so well on C. They've still got all 5 players standing. An attempt here through Waterfall for 2. Jazzykins and Tillo. That's a ton of initiating power, by the way, working through Waterfall. But the question is, where's your tertiary pressure? Your active duelist moving in, and Instincts coming in from defender side spawn. Still guarding Ghost, trying to flush things out. Jazzykins will be hit by this entirely, so even more time stalled in Boise State when they have ultimates and utility. They're really good at taking C, but they weren't able to survive that post-plant scenario, and that's going to be the question now. Swing around the bend. Jazzy and Instincts he's finding one, but they go down immediately after the fact. It is Boise State pulling off something that we wanted to see. The last round falling their way. No 9-3 for me. It's 8-4 instead. A much more recoverable, especially if they can win the pistol to start the second half.
I mean, hey, that's all you really need. Round by round, kind of 1 by 1. Don't really think about 13 just yet. Just think about 5, 6, 7, 8. Just count as they come and seeing how things are going. Obviously, first half didn't go in their way too much. When you see the string of rounds, when you see those first 3, that rebound was insane from them. That was even then when we saw that first tech problem in the middle of the map, and I'm saying it's expected for them to win this, and Boise State turned it on its head almost near immediately. So it's one of those things where the potential is there. On the defensive side, though, that's a much bigger question. You're running a double duelist. You're kind of panning more towards that attacking side. And now you were, once again, as I said, where earlier Boise State need to put a leash on St. Clair to their site. Boise State seems to seemingly be putting that leash on themselves as they are backing up from these sites and just letting St. Clair have this free reign.
Well, and that free reign's now giving you a possible chance to plant here on C. It'll be default, not for Mound, but for an active site hold. Can still arguably hold it from there, but it's a lot harder to do so. You'll move JP there nonetheless. A refrag finally given in Boise State's favor, but with the loss now of 3 to their name and damage dealt to the remaining 2, it seems a slim margin chance that they'll get something going. Master's now alone. Great hit to the head for Tilla while moving, but that's just the way recoil is right now in the game, and St. Clair are like, yeah, that's fine. We have a numbers advantage. Rush towards you and get those classic right clicks out. Free gun, by the way. That Ghost will have no chance at this distance. And it'll be St. Clair once again coming away with a pistol round win. Remember, they broke that mold at the start. 2-1 is what you expect. They went 3-0 with Boise State pulling out that crazy round 4, mind you. But all the chances ready for it again because St. Clair can just push that agenda, work through their progressions, and do what we needed to see Boise State do to come over with those round wins early on in their attacking half.
I mean, it's funny to see St. Clair obviously kind of turn the tide when it comes around to the pacing. I mean, they're on the attacking side now. They can set anything they want to, and instead of playing things slow and steady and kind of emulating Boise State there, they just end up rushing right on in towards that C site. No regard for any players in their way whatsoever. And that's what cued that backup. That's what kind of created that bit of intimidation where it's like, we can't hold the line like they did because there's too many players and they're not thinking. They're just running forward, but they got the aim to back it up. So they make sure to win around off the back of it, find themselves a second pistol of this match so far. And obviously that's a trend you want to keep going because that's not only a first round, but more than likely a second one. But they're not following the same suit. They know that classic is in play. They know where these players can be hiding when it comes around to these corners. And they also, more importantly, know that, hey, if they're going to do the same thing we did, there's going to be a time where we understand what they did against us. So just copy paste right there. Thanks for the home run. This is an assignment. I'm not going to get a 0. I think I'm going to be praised for coming up with that to find a solution.
Movement on to A, and it's flawless so far for St. Clair. Instinct even hiding just below at bottom stairs, waiting for anyone on Boise State's defense to try to test them. Sheriff out for Skies. Huge lick of damage going their way, and so they're second-guessing that potential peak. And now with a way back look for KOS, in an attempt to get some damage the other way, Tiger still comes out the superior. And St. Clair, yeah, they go through this flawlessly, mind you, to get that second round of the half. And now with plenty of weapons, the players that didn't buy, if you say had a ghost or a sheriff, arguably, Dallas, since you're now at double digits, you very well could buy up something to match the rest of the credits for your team. This would be the round to do it, just basing off of how good your team was and how many players survived to hold on to weapons that were purchased for your bonus.
Yeah, I mean, just how things are going, obviously, St. Clair find themselves a double-digit checkpoint chokehold kind of situation. I mean, I doubt we're going to look too much at the chokehold, knowing how things have been going for them. They've been acquiescing all these upgrades and been keeping the economy relatively consistent for them, making sure to find that gradual growth that they need. So the way this has been playing out, good looks on them. Boise State on this defense, that's something that we obviously have to kind of start taking a note to. Figuring out how they're really going to go ahead and not put the leash on themselves, but just more so build that wall, because they do have the Vice in play. They do have the kind of tried and true. But again, this is one of those maps where we've seen Viper played 9 times out of 10, and these teams both meet the 0.5 of each side to equate to that last missing digit. And it's so useful. It's so good, and especially on that C site. And that makes sense why St. Clair just pressed W on C initially. They know there is no Viper, there is no wall, there is no toxic cloud, there is nothing really truly preventing us. There are things that can slow us down, sure, but that's nothing a blast pack can't fix. You're not maneuvering through that little steel wire there. You're not slowing things down. You're not really creating much of a halt. That's something that the Viper still will do, and why it was something that was such a heavy nerf to the entire kit, saying we're going down from 30 immediately on touch from 10, because it was just such a strong piece of utility that it was so small but added up so many times that it became a bigger than anything else.
So one of the things to mention here for Boise State that they have that could arguably give them a bit of a lead would be that Vice. But like you mentioned, boost packs, great way to counteract that. And not having a Viper with a toxic screen or a poison cloud they have to jump through was going to leave them still at full HP with zero problem getting over the top of those Razor Vines. And you also have an Omen. You can just Shrouded Step past it, and that's typically the 1-2 you see. You have your Omen Shrouded Step just behind box. You have the Rays go up onto site or around the bend entirely if they're really good at using their boost packs effectively. So why would Boise State try to play that actively? They just really have to give it up. So that means they put even more emphasis on their retakes. And a lot of the way that we saw them win sites and win retakes on their attacking side was on ultimate counterplay. There's not enough rounds left for you to get those ultimates online to rely on those reliably to win out these scenarios. So you have to find the way to do it, and quick, especially with St. Clair alone coming into this next round. One, like you said, double digits is acquired. They're at the gates of victory here. Just a couple more until they're there. But also they've got plenty of weapons. And if they do force out those 2 players who didn't buy up a weapon for round 2 of the second half, they're going to do it here, and knowing they're in the lead, and try to take advantage of that and sweep through the remainder. And that would be a terrible way, because you only really got in that first half, Dallas, for Boise State, off that big round 4 where you pulled off a Sheriff push because Instinct made a mistake and pressed W a little bit too hard and gave up a Phantom early.
Yeah, and I mean, not only Phantom, but I mean, talking once again, going back to the age and seeing the ones that were selected on the field, we're not seeing these players. You talk about the Shrouded Step, being able to go ahead and completely bypass some of this utility. That's still, once again, something the Viper provides where it's a wall. It's a smoke by the end of the day. And it's going to make sure that you're not just going to freely teleport on the other side. And guess what? A player's going to be waiting there for you. You didn't know where they were. You couldn't check where they were, so you don't just, for no reason, willy-nilly TP on the other side of it. That razor wire, you can see beyond it. It's just on the ground. It's just as harmful if you're allergic to grass. It's a little itchy. It'll be a little painful, but it's not life-threatening by any means. And that's one of those big stakes that, once again, Boise State is taking on those retakes. That is where St. Clair has already solved that problem. That's why they are running that breach, where you don't see these players overextending and going outside these sites. You see them understanding that so long as we have a player stationed somewhere relatively close, but not completely outside or too far to kind of draw a line from one player to the next. On their retakes, they had stunts. They had the aftershocks to flush players out of corners. They had the rolling thunder for those big wombo combos on particular rounds. Meanwhile, Boise State's just running, you know, the Omen to smoke maybe an angle or two, because one will always be used at the round start towards that A main area. But more so, you're not running another initiator beyond that. You're running the fade. That's going to be great for the Prowlers, but you have nothing to really kind of force players out again, besides flashes, besides you pressing W, besides you pushing the button, and once again, you being in the position where you have to take the shots. And it's just not enough to flush players out. It's not enough to create that feeling of being claustrophobic on site. St. Clair saying, please press that button. Please show up, because there's not enough here to really put us in a scenario where we feel like we're hurting on this site.
So one of the great things as well about having Jazzykins here on that breach, and we saw this work in their prior series that I think you and I actually were casting as well on Lotus when, you know, she was in play with the breach for it, and it worked out for the Saints. It's working here again. Is like you had mentioned, the ability to stun and flash a lot more effectively through these walls. When we're talking about skipping that Razor Vine and skipping the Vice needs to play active behind stack, behind pillar to fight on site. But you're forcing a 2v1. Your Omen can Shrouded Step, and your Raze can instantly boost back through. So that's a guaranteed 2v1. The Saints can ignore basically every other pressure, though, because your waterfall defending player that should be there to spray through and stop those crosses into sight to join the rest of the roster, that Omen and Raze particularly, they can't peek that, because they're now, one, being stunned, either that or they're being completely damaged out by breach util, or they're full flash for 2.5 seconds, and you're already really annoyed about that. So your waterfall is not a contending point, so the only place you can go is back defender side of spawn in sight, and you don't have an angle to stop down the arch approach anyways. So it's such a broil of a hard contending site. And yes, we love to see the breach, but breach also has their own problems that arguably make it better to play other sentinels, or play a sentinel there instead of having an initiator, right? But you're doing that and taking a sacrifice for it, and it's paying dividends for the Saints, and it's working in this round as they've gotten themselves 3 kills, now only losing 1 in the front, and Taiga gets a good shot to the foot here of KOS, but just can't finish that one as they'll go high up, and Taiga will see them to get the job finished, but it's stolen to the last second by a great connection from Instinct with that judge.
I mean, exactly what we were just mentioning there. I mean, Razor Vines go out. Taiga don't care. That's cute. I'll just TP through it. I mean, I know there's no player sitting in that left side, sitting inside that pocket there, because we've already checked it. We've also flashed every single thing on site. We've stunned another angle in the meantime. And what's really left? Just nothing, because I can go to that box. I see Master up on site shooting at you guys. We haven't seen a secondary player swing to make that engage on anybody back towards that C main section. So clearly nobody's here, and I can just press W for free. It's this culmination, this domino effect, where it just feels like St. Clair are just dominoes made of titanium, because they are falling on you, and the weight is just too much to really bear. But finally, looking for a bit of a stall here, not giving too much over, as Daimyo can make sure to find one towards another section of the map, but it looks like the emphasis over here towards C, as Scalasis finds one more and makes the numbers equal again.
This is the chance. Boise State, they did it in the first half on an eco, and they broke through St. Clair, but they did that on offense. JP will go ahead and let that sheer wall climb up. That buys a little bit of time. The Razor Vines as well. This is fine. You're likely just going to leave JP here anyways. You want them to sit inside A lobby all the way back towards Pillar. They have a Headhunter. That weapon can do it at any range. Give them a sheriff. Otherwise, they're solid. They have no problem. But Boise State have to close that distance. From the shadows being used, Taiga, wow, could have been something huge actually, but they were just barely not there. And the ping will go through. 1 or 2 players coming through defender side spawn now. You got another one already in drop. KOS sends out a razor vine. Jazzy will clear that 35 HP to it. It's pretty easy to shoot out these days. But they're getting a good movement towards site now with the relay ball after the fact. A double spray from JP. And there's your chance for more. It's the 3rd to their name. Match point here on Lotus as St. Clair bring us to the gates of victory.
Just quick, swift with it. Knowing when these players are going to be engaging, knowing they're going to work with the numbers, because guess what? The shots and the guns don't have the same level of spray. Knowing what they're up against, seeing those full rifles in hand. And this is going to be the last round where Boise State has that chance to do it, because in that one prior, I mean, you're seeing these culmination of factors come together where St. Clair just have the perfect read for it. They understand how these guys are going to play. They understand the kind of stacks that are going to come together, and they understand especially where they're going to be stationing up. And this is why they're sending that line of scrimmage over towards C. They want to end this round when they can. So a very quick stun comes through. Just a nice little peek to get an idea of where these players are, but that's the swing that's going to ultimately end your team there. Boise State knew you were going to line up for this. They knew you were going to want that, and with just sidestepping a swing there and seeing the players, they understand that Raze is going to swing that yet. You look towards another area. You find the bigger presence, the bigger problems, and address those first, and eventually Raze will come out, be outnumbered in that situation, ended up losing it. So Master having a great read over there towards staircase. Make sure JP can't find another pick. And, well, it just comes down to Tillo just running around, seeing where maybe somebody's going to overextend, where somebody could give a kill, and with a wide swing to finish things off. 1 more round for Boise State and 3 more kills for Master.
All right, one thing to point out for Boise State there is they counter-read what St. Clair were going to do. You set up and lay that one-way smoke for your dark cover on box through mound, which we've seen pretty much every round for both sides. It's kind of like a go-to defensively. There's only 2 ways to counteract that. 1, extend past it as quick as possible. Speed is the name of the game. By the way, underrated movie back in the day. Take a page out of their book, right? Or wait things out and play a very slow game and wait out, 30 seconds, 40 seconds of smokes going down continuously and, being quite annoyed about it. They went fast. They pay the price. Boise State knew that they were going to do that. They already have the lead, so why not anticipate it? Master goes close, though. You still get 1, though, for the trade. And St. Clair will have, hey, there was a lot of players peeking me down towards Mound, and that flank also from Master with a dimensional drift. Let's get on to A, push that go button. Let's get the spike down as quick as we can.
Well, keep the dream alive, 1 by 1. Keep it running. Issue is, player down for both sides. Nightfall available for Boise State, so that's going to be a big stance. But you got to think about who is going to be on site, who's going to be available there, because you do the Nightfall early. No players are really there to work with it. And, well, sure, cuts off the audible, lets you know where teams aren't going to be coming from, and definitely covers some tracks. But the issue is the sites aren't gone. They're very much still working, and the hands are working in tandem as well.
It's really good to clear those audio cues, but at the same time, there's not very many players left standing or the utility to send out, which is really what the audio cues are there for. It's not as effective, and your team sends it, but then kind of falls too quickly to make impact from it. And that's going to happen. Like we talked about the ultimate changes in the patch, how much they've limited the width and gap, and so you got to be a lot closer. They said in the patch, the devs are like, hey, we want to force you to have to be closer to the action, a lot less freebie ultimate uses. You got to really engage more. The big one was like C-Long on Haven. You can't just sit in lobby. You actually have to go into Cubby instead.
Yeah.
I digress, right? That's the whole point and purpose, to make you have to either bear the costs of getting that close to do it or try to get there as quick as possible while staying alive before doing it. And they just couldn't survive just moments after it. So slight unfortunate mistakes in that moment lead you in for the Saints to a map 1 victory on Lotus, something they could not do just last week against that Winthrop Academy roster of all things. But Boise State showed us some really good moments in that first half, but plagued by tech issues and plagued by the inability to find big round wins despite the major clutch they had in round 4. I think that was my favorite round out of them in that entire series. It's just not enough to come away with the rounds where they could say they're super happy with it, especially when, even if they aren't going to get a win here in the series, which statistically they weren't favored, you want round differential. That's really important right now, the round differential heading into playoffs.
I mean, the round differential, obviously not the biggest thing in the world here for this map specifically, but also it was the pick of the St. Clair Saints. So that's kind of the silver lining there. It's something where you understand this should be a map that wasn't going to work out for us much anyways. And by the time playoff gets around, if you can find the win on Bind coming up and make sure to really double down for the last one, you may be in playoffs at that point and never have to see it again. And
Yep.
St. Clair is just done and dusted at that point. So, I mean, good looks there, good possibilities, but you never really know. And speaking of those tech problems, hopefully we can get them solved, and we'll have a map 2 flawless, ready to roll for you on the other side of this break.
Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard.
After a map one that ends in the St. Clair Saints' favor, well, Boise State have to answer now on their map pick a bind to turn things around here, Dallas. Can they get it done? It's a map for the offense. Can their offense prove themselves?
Whoa.
What a back.
Okay, we're going to bind. That's the first thing. Second off, Boise State, their attack, that's all really it was during that last map. Now that we're caught up, they need to once again try to really emulate that, but they really got to drive it home in this one. Things aren't looking too hot for them in terms of the kind of fragging department, but more so in terms of the pressure department, because St. Clair feels really restrained in terms of obviously their own half of the map when they're on the defense. They don't like staying inside those sites. They don't like holding those lines. They don't like sitting those kind of regularities. They like extending out. They like going ahead and pushing the problem into Boise State's hands. And well, that's something that, especially with this kind of loadout, they're going to be not only trapping them from getting to site, but I feel like that wall from the deadlock is going to be more so used behind them to make sure they can't get away.
Also, the deadlock wall, we talked a lot about how high of a value pick deadlock can be and feels like. Didn't Jazzykins play this deadlock on Ascent last time we saw them in the same series where they played Lotus on map 1, right? Didn't we see them play the deadlock on Ascent as well? We were really content with that performance from them. Obviously, they were a KDR leader by the end of that day as well. Only a single series to their name. It still was a statistical anomaly. The frags go forward. It's actually Boise State's favor. 3 players will TP, though, through short here into mid, and they now have spike control as well. And this barrier, guess what? Locks out a lot of that Boise State offense, being able to reclaim control over that. And all 4 of them are trapped inside of Hookah, and they will need to start to split up to provide tertiary pressure, because if they don't, I hate to break it to you, that spike's going to be really hard to reclaim, especially if you're trying to wait for any like Sky Smoke or anything of the sort to come back up to set things up, because guess what? St. Clair will just send out their own level of Sky Smokes to keep you stalled within it.
I mean, that's all this game is right now. Sure, there's 50 seconds left on the clock, more than that, but I mean, they're just going to be playing things slow. They're going to be waiting for these players to swing out. They're waiting for the opportunities to come to them, because, well, as you see, once they do that, things usually go their way. And with still the spike now picked up and Boise State making a push over towards this B side, it's a good standstill for them. It's a good just kill overall, but where are they going to go for the retake? What kind of stance are going to be making? Because the health is relatively even across the field. I mean, sure, we see a little bit more damage taken on the deadlock and a little less on the Rays, but more on the Viper to compensate for it. It's one of those things, though, where you got to think about the guns at hand. You can't be closing these corners. You can't be going over to these elbows too much, because that right click will make very quick work of you, but you also can't be in a long-range fight because, well, you know that most players are running ghosts right now, and it's going to be just free pick. So check whatever corners you can. Instinct heading back over towards Hookah, and with confidence, when we get the first one there, blast pack in, shots made for 1 in the air on the head, and unfortunately a 50-50 not working out for Instinct there, because time is of the essence and it's just not there for you.
Wow, Boise State do something they were incapable of on map 1. They went out a pistol round. And keep in mind, they were always that team that would let 3 go in the other team's favor, right? They'd start with a 3-0, which is not what you expect to see for Valorant and competitive. But they were getting that 4th round afterwards, and they're getting really darn close to it despite it being an eco. So pistols should be good for them because they were winning pistols against rifles. So why couldn't they change it here? And especially considering that Boise State were in a spot where, my goodness, Dallas, Spike's completely under control to St. Clair. They're sky smoking you out. They're keeping you at bay. Utility is in their favor for a round like that because they didn't have to use much to counter you because they just flaked through TP. It should have been a round for the Saints. And yet, the Broncos overpower and manage to get through. And really, I think most of that's off of KOS's snake bite that forced the 2 players in Spices to be funneled back. That doesn't do nearly as much damage as it used to. You could have actually walked straight through that and continued to pressure, but it still is considered enough of a threat that they felt the need to fall back through long, and that allowed for a perfect post-plant position for Boise State's offense.
Decay sure is a fickle mistress, but vulnerability,
it hurts. It does.
Is literally your worst nightmare. And especially in a pistol round, that makes a classic hit like an op. So, I mean, I can't really blame them for wanting to sit back on that one. But speaking of sitting back, we do see St. Clair doing exactly that. A bit of an extension coming up from Taiga, but the rest of the team lingering about this site. And the funny thing about this is they have the spike over towards the side, but they're still opting for the rotate and wanting to just kind of go ahead and put everybody together. They want to take these fights. They want to kill these players. They do not want to make a rotation, opting for the place that is less taken.
30 seconds left.
This is still a confrontation that will cost you if you're not careful. Great swing by Tilla with timing, instinct up close as well. Last player standing. Sheriff far away could be good, and it's good for the first, but KOS pulls off a ridiculously good round 1. We talked about that snake bite in the performance afterwards, and the way they break that round 2 open to get 4 kills to save Boise State cannot be understated. But look at what it cost you. What lays bare in the field of wins? Well, just a single man left standing, a scarecrow to keep and cordon off St. Clair, and I hate to say it, this scarecrow may get blown over like a tornado through a field. St. Clair have every player with rifles, and Boise State have just the one, and they have a lot of trouble in front of them.
I mean, you're not dealing with scarecrows. You're dealing with dubs because, I mean, St. Clair's loving what they're seeing. Making sure to get every single player they can off the field. I mean, the Guardian being the last weapon, that was more so of a luck thing. In terms of the lineup and the kind of weaponry that you're dealing with on the 2 players in terms of that particular fight, that the Sheriff, it just doesn't have nearly as good of a first shot accuracy as the Guardian does. But everything else here for Boise State looking good until finally the first blood is drawn and it's in St. Clair's favor. So these guns in hand, players held up towards Hookah, and a singular kill made. That's going to be another weapon. Acquiesce for Skies.
Whoa.
And make sure to get a second off the back of it. Showstopper in hand now as a follow-up. Gets the 3rd, and KOS is on site helping out.
This is Boise State in a round that should never have even been a possibility. Now made so. The frags from Skies. Taiga. Molly was a little bit wrong. Trying to do it quickly on the approach forward. It's going to be an elbow push. This metal hall is dangerous if you allow them to retake control over this one. You're now expecting them to be holding 90. So you'll drop a Sky Smoke at a spot where you could sit. Timing will be tight. Should be able to stick this to half. Skies will work through this. 6 HP in a dream. All it takes is 1 bullet. They get it, but Danyo's there on the follow-up. And Boise State will do what St. Clair did in the entirety of map 1. A 3-0 start, and they did it with way less weapons than St. Clair had on both of their pistol round or 3rd round bonuses afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, bit of a panic there, but still a round managed nonetheless. I mean, that's huge for Boise State. That was the attacking side that we talked about on the prior map where they were managing to get all their rounds on the field. And that's good standing for them because if you already managed to get half of what a guaranteed even half could be, you're making sure to lock St. Clair out. That's really the biggest goal right now is to just kind of really suffocate and make sure they respect you on the defensive end. And they've managed to do that. St. Clair hasn't really been pushing out too much, but if there's any round they're going to, it would be on something like this when they're dealing with an eco. But already having a bit of an idea of where the walls can be placed, they missed a tiny little gap there and understand that, oh, maybe that needs to kind of be doubled down on.
Maybe trying to vie for the ult orb. Some pressure from a Prowler back the other way again from that TP. JP here in Octagon. Timing is so wrong there, but JP twice as wrong, unfortunately, missing their shots and the chance really for St. Clair to have potential to keep them off the B side for at least a couple seconds longer, or let's drop a weapon or two. With those players wanting to get in fast for Boise State, you also had a little bit of an issue. Skies accidentally hitting their teammate on the approach in, and so they get stalled out just a little bit, allowing St. Clair to move in towards site. Attempted stun. Tillo looking to work with something. It's Instinct finding their own frag, and everything's coming real. The orbital strike comes in, and Spike is under control for the Saints. And they'll pick up the weapons that have been dropped in front of them. Instinct is low. This is not the player I would want to have up here. When they have a weapon, they could have handed to a player further back if they were just going to wield the Sheriff anyways. The Saints 3 versus 2, and you've now dropped it back to an even 2-on-2, and everyone is at a sliver of HP for your roster. You have one towards 90, another one off towards Hookah. Spike's close. Tyga's got the outlaw, though. And if you're Master, there's just no time for this. You'll try to rush down this player, but Tillo's got your covering fire. And it's the Saints making round 4 somehow possible to get their first round win on Bind.
I mean, you had to give the payback for the last game, right? That's the same way we kicked it off, except for just the opposing side. Saying, St. Clair understands if Boise State can do it, surely when you look at the standings, we should be able to do it better. And, well, considering the thrifty on the top of your screen, they definitely did that. Lots of Sheriffs on the field. Nice upgrades being made through the round. And you mentioned that, Randall. I do want to go ahead and mention there was one singular bullet in that magazine, and that's why the swap was made back.
There it is.
Because, well, you know, it's a one bullet. I might as well just use the Sheriff at that point and got 3. It's a numbers game, and we understand casters don't do math, so it's a difficult situation that we're being put in here. But beyond that, we can read the top of the screen. We can also count how many yellow borders are here. So the dimensional drifting at play in the Viper's Pit as well. This should not be essentially a guaranteed plant, but it should be a very confident post.
A little bit of utility. The Teo is out for Boise State, so they're getting information off of that Sentry drone. Master trying to go in quickly. JP gets there better and survives the molly.
Oh my god.
And with Tyga just spraying on sight, you're making quick work of this Boise State offensive front. They're just wanting a plant. That's all they wanted, to make use of the Viper's pits, but they haven't even had the chance to get into it. Finally dealt with, and there's your finale off towards Skelesis. And agent selection, I don't think we even touched on really that much, was Boise State's. We see glimpses of why it's going to be great in this attacking half, but they can get gate-kept just as easily by the St. Clair roster, especially when you counteract that really heavily with the deadlock. And that's the great way to do it, even if an ultimate comes your way. Fix yourself, adjust correctly, and JP will get those frags where needed.
Beautiful round once again coming out from St. Clair, not really having to use anything in the process, and then we saw Boise State make sure to expend that dimensional drift just to look for the information. But I mean, the player, even the Master, can't manage to find that kill, and it's just small little things like that, as we said, that really add up over the course of this match to make sure the score differential that is close on these close maps, well, can really just guarantee a winner on one side or the other. But issue is, when you see a score already so close, so early, things like that are going to go ahead and just create a massive, momentous build that can ultimately make this round differential even larger for the other side. But St. Clair still have one more they need to manage to get themselves the tie. So what are they going to do about that? They're going to hold things as confidently as they can. They're going to, once again, stay inside their respective sites, not extend out too much. We saw that pressure towards showers, but might as well flex where you can. Just get an idea of where players are, and they want to make sure if Boise State was keeping track of it. They were, and unfortunately, by the time you get on the site, you know that, well, that's where you're going to meet them.
If you can get still through a short here, if you're KOS and find a frag, it's very doable to take TP and get over to the A side, because there's just one more man on site. Boise State do find an opener, at least towards B, and they'll extend there. Nightfall goes back the other way. Still contesting. Boise State would like to be. Master hits by the Annihilation by the sliver of their shoulder. And they will not be able to be freed by their teammates. An attempt by Skelesis. No, they just barely get it, and Jazzykins is not able to swing out to stop it. How is this allowed? Hey, it's just a spray through. Can you stick this on Skelesis? No chance to go for it. My goodness. They went for it. They should have just TP'd out of there if they had expected to see the Nightfall, but they were already too engaged, Dallas, and they decided to stick around to test their luck on that B site.
Well, I mean, the utility was already committed, and even more so, considering the time that was left available, there was nearly nothing. We saw the actual plant have to be forced to go down because by the time the execution on the B site where they already found those initial picks, they still wanted to go for it when it had about maybe, 19 seconds left. You're not going to have the utility available to invest once more. You know more than likely St. Clair's going to have a player allocated towards that A area when they had such confident numbers so early on. But that was kind of the fault to St. Clair where they did that investment. They changed those players' positionings, but they didn't really have to. But you want to make sure you're rather safe than sorry by the end of it. So good looks once more. Trying to see how things are going to go here towards Showers, because we've seen the gunfights take place a lot around this area. We've seen this matchup on so many occasions in so many different spots, but still in the same region of the map. And, well, having too many players there could give St. Clair a great idea that Boise State wants to go on this commit.
JP's holding a dangerous game. Just for that toxic stream would go up. Eventually does spot KOS. Snakebite will go. Does not bounce. It's just there to cordon off Cubby itself. Molly will force JP away from Square, and now you've got comms being made. There is also the use here of your tail ult in an attempt to force St. Clair away from U-Haul just the same. And Master has been allowed to stay alive after the whiff off there in Showers earlier, and that's now creating even more opportunities for this offense.
That's an awkward angle.
This is a horrid way to see this round devolve here, as Tillo is now alone. There's Outlaw in hand in an attempt to make something of nothing. I'll spray up here towards this U-Haul side. Hitfire goes wrong, and Master, again, if Master Dallas had been taken out as they should have been in Showers with a Phantom versus Sheriff engagement in there, that entire round would have easily been St. Clair's. But they failed to do it, and that player alone breathes life into this Boise State offense.
Because keep in mind, I mean, JP also could have found that kill a little bit quicker, but being flashed, obviously, wasn't doing too much there, which is also kind of crazy, all things considered, with the flash nerfs that came through as well. You got to be a little bit snappier. So just a bit unfortunate that we're seeing Boise State create all of this chaos here for St. Clair, and it's good looks for them, though. Making sure that they are taking advantage of the moment, as short as the window may be, they are still finding success. And speaking of success, seems no other than Master is at the helm of it for Boise State in this lead that they are making sure to manage and maintain to the best of their ability.
Skies in the crawl. Your Boise State, the B site looks tantalizing. Even with the frag off towards A, it creates a idea of pressure. Not enough is enough to facilitate something. Ultimate Orb is collected, and thanks to Master going crazy a few rounds prior, they've got it up again. Yeah, good night is definitely an acceptable term for this, as Master will not even have to worry about that barrier really stalling out the rest of the team. They don't get enough information, but it does force St. Clair off of the objective. And there's out a flash attempt from Master. Sends out a decoy the other way. Scalasis with a properly timed swing, and St. Clair are being victimized by the Boise State offense again. Second flash out. Master can just keep JP cordoned away. Shots can connect to Skies, but who wants but Master to finish the job?
Really locking these guys down back towards spawn. I mean, the just adjustments being made from Boise State and from map 1 to map number 2. I mean, this is clearly their map pick. They show that they know it. And even more so, whipping out. We haven't even really gotten a chance because of how fast we got through the agent selection. That Tejo's being played here. And somebody that had what felt like a 100% pick rate during release has kind of finally been put in his place. But that's the way it works here. That different agents have different places, different maps where they can excel. And considering how crazy and contested buying can be, this is the perfect map for them. All these salvos going out, the Armageddon, things to flush players out, find the information where you need. I mean, it has everything you need for this map in particular, and it looks good for it.
And yet somehow, St. Clair can't find any safe space to work defensively. Showstopper out for Skies. And ult to a single player. Potty shot as well with a spray through to transfer over to backside defender spawn. And JP is alone. A stinger is all you have. What could you possibly do? A controller, I'll put down a smoke. I'll close the distance. No, you'll be playing for an exit frag here. And honestly, if you're St. Clair, Dallas, you're probably calling a timeout after this anyways, but you're treating this like a tactical timeout, just letting that player sit here and stall to eventually die to the detonation of this spike.
all 5 left for Boise State. There's just no chance for you. But the sheer amount of ult orbs you've been allowing Master to collect, the sheer value you're letting them get off of these ultimates, that is a core fundamental issue that St. Clair have not been able to figure out yet. And this is the style of Boise State offense that I was hyping up throughout the entirety of our pre-show, throughout every one of those technical timeouts, throughout all of these breaks. You've been hearing us yap a whole heck of a lot tonight, folks. And a lot of that's been about how good Boise State's offense statistically has been in Division 1. And we're seeing that greatness now unfold to give them the advantage.
It's at that point where we see that Boise State can actually breathe and respond to. Keep in mind, I mean, bind is one of those attributes that isn't really mentioned all that much, but you have such a huge spawn to work with. You have such a massive amount of real estate there towards the back where you have an entire lap that you can run around. You get a miniature track there to work with. And, well, Boise State's using that. They understand that St. Clair could force the problem down their throats in that last one on Lotus, where it's just a singular spot where by the time you step out of the confines of your spawn, it feels like you're immediately onto a site. Well, that's not the case here. We've seen Boise State sit back plenty of times, and once you actually get to those, avenues to make and execute on site, it's so snappy, it's so quick, it's so chaotic, and it feels like St. Clair hasn't really had a good read on when those moments come because they try to push up. They try to expect maybe these close gunfights as they saw prior over in Lotus. But as we've seen on multiple occasions, Master is sitting all the way back towards Fountain or all the way back towards A main, where that spawn is, where that gate drops, and saying it's a much longer line of sight than you remember, dog. You don't run into these situations very often, but it's enough for you to lose that fight, and therefore not only give me another ult tick, but go ahead and give us a first blood, and just really, really get things rolling for their favor.
You can see how serious the comms were there for St. Clair, just communicating during that timeout. You can see the crowd watching as well. Not liking what they're seeing. Their team being down by double the stat line isn't necessarily a great look, but it's still a very possible chance to recover. 6-6 is not an impossibility. It's just very slim to try to recover into. It will require a lot of that timeout to have worked well for you. You can also see the cheers from the Boise State roster. Divey was clapping their hands and getting pumped. They were getting hyped. They're putting numbers up on a team as good as St. Clair. Boise State want to step through this, the victor, to make that map 3 a possibility and to turn this series on its head. Because we thought the closest one throughout the whole weekend would be that West Virginia game. We thought maybe the Winthrop and Stony Brook game would be good. Maybe it really will be St. Clair and Boise State instead. As the rush from Boise State starts to unfurl towards B, it's just pressure here through Hookah. Skies will hide just behind the box. Taiga will be very wary of that decoy and more as two players come down through B long. And the shots have just been so poor from St. Clair starting for these first bloods. And it's bleeding players by such a large margin that it's not been able to set them up well for a defense recovery when it comes to post plants.
It's also kind of funny seeing the minimap, seeing the players making the rotate, kind of wanting to go and commit towards that B side, allocate the players on that side of the map, but then just kind of turn the tail and saying that maybe that's not the move. And understandably so, we see St. Clair making sure they can save whatever weapons are available to them for the next round because, as you said, another one of the situations where you're going for a tactical timeout or at least a impromptu one. Trying to find this time, trying to find this space. Give yourself this breathing room to figure out really what's going on. How is Boise State breaching so consistently? And, I mean, it's a lot of questions, but not too many answers for them just yet. And one of those things, I think that's plaguing them so far with how they're trying to meet them on the line, that the deadlock utility to me is at least a little bit too far back to really find a massive impact. We've seen the wall come into play once or twice, but you got to find something that stuns these guys, that slows them down, that forces them to look in a different direction for maybe even just half a second. But we haven't seen Boise State's attention go anywhere except for the opposition in front of them. Not enough distractions and too many incentives for this team on the attacking side so far. And even for the post plant, by time you get there, you don't even have enough really to warrant to go for it. That last round being a prime example, but more so also seeing that, well, KOS hasn't used that Viper's Pit yet, has felt plenty comfy with these initial plants that you don't feel like there's enough pressure to warrant even throwing it down because your team's just successfully locking St. Clair on the outer perimeter.
It's crazy that you can be performing so well, Dallas, on the offense that you have a reactive Viper's Pit. Not one that you're preemptively planning in your stratagem. No, a reactive Viper's Pit. It's a get out of jail free card. They've got an Uno reverse at a moment's notice. They can play this purely off vibe, it feels like. And that should never be the case. But since St. Clair are just fueling the fire of the Broncos, letting this Boise State roster get these free first bloods, get information, tons of damage, and then be that unexpected force that sprints into these sites without any real ability to deny it, it's going to happen nearly every single time. Boise State will have to deal with this grab net really well played. That will give you Skies.
Look at that.
Gets a little bit of damage as well. Showstopper!
Look at that!
Instinct! Puts it into 2 more on top. And now just 2 remaining. Master from Off in Showers makes quick work of Tillo. Now you've got Taiga up above in heaven. Hard to use a Brim up there valuably in terms of utility to keep that back. Maybe you put a smoke here towards the shower way, but you still got JP way off over towards B site, wary to even move away. That's going to be the bigger issue in my mind. It'll be a 1v2 on site, and JP will have to step over quickly, and Master will time this well. Orbital Strike will give you the chance to get over there. As Taiga waits up above, a Molly to force them off defaults. They'll have to plant in a new spot. They're planting this one very close, and they'll now know exactly where it is. This gives JP the perfect chance to strike, but a 2v1 is still so darn difficult to crawl your way back into, as both players primed inside a U-Haul. JP worried about the sound and the audio cues of that decoy. Crouch play for the 1 down, 1 up. They're already low. JP could try to touch this ever so slightly. Master's going to hold this one first. Headshot could be there, but the Saints have been so poor about watching and clearing these corners. They finally checked the close one, Dallas, but it's just around the other way that gets you going. And Boise State, off the back of Master and Skies, have torn open this first half on Bind.
I mean, that didn't even look like a headshot. That looked like a hit towards the nose. Just whatever's available, hit it. And I mean, it'll count. It's a hit box for a reason. But seeing how things are going, just great looks here from Boise State and what they're doing. I mean, managing time and time again. We finally saw a glimpse of St. Clair getting an idea of how that was going. I mean, that was the one round where not only was Boise State forced to kind of wait on that plant, but they were in a difficult situation just off rip. We saw the utility from Jazzykins be a little more proactive, which is kind of what you expect out of Jazzykins. We see Jazzykins on so many occasions. I mean, we talk about the proficiency, the breach. Sure, you can't play a deadlock like that. You can't just slap your mine, throw it at them, and it just detonates after a half second. But you can still kind of be a little more aggressive. Use that grav net. Use, the annihilation. Use these tools you have at your disposal to force information out, but also to maybe force a fight to go in your favor.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any sort of leveraging from that, right? It's a fulcrum, and you have to make sure it's at least doing something. If you're just using utility to use utility, you're back in the old util consumption meta, which is not where we feel like we are right now. And after this really big patch kind of hits the Valorant community. Slightly higher play there for KOS to distance some level of line of sight. Jazzy will still get assistance, though, from a player just not too far behind. They'll remove themselves away from A short, knowing that that one player was there. It's likely going to be a B take, so they're trying to get over there as fast as humanly possible, and here it is from Skies. Double boost back in, 12 HP remaining. Tillo may lose their life if they don't check this right corner. It's a shot start to go forward. There's your check, the annihilation. Grabs one, and Skies still gets 2. How do you not check your corners here, folks? You needed a smoke in front of you, and you tried to push the go button, but the go button got stuck, and you got stuck outside the gate.
And even then, I mean, Master, the guy that we were highlighting through the entirety of that half, not even present on the site for that round, was going for a flank. It was just nothing but everyone else there. Clearly, Sky's leading the charge, saying that, brother, I got to get my share of blood too. I've been behind this entire half, but we got to be on the same page here. And sure, they're in different deaths, but, I mean, their kills, the exact same. Able to lock in, know that double duelist situation on the attacking side, has to find some relative success, and, well, they've done exactly that. So with the side swapping and seeing now Boise State on the defensive end, they don't have a sentinel. Not that it gave St. Clair too much of a benefit on that side of the field, but they don't have a double duelist of their own. They have a double controller. So maybe they can turn the tides, make things a little bit more awkward. But Skies, who is really pulling the trigger on that one, finding the head of Tillo in the process.
Now the movement forward. Double lineup. Could have gotten a double dink, and I think it may have, but Not enough, and now St. Clair's offense is being zoned, and now you have the salvos coming out as well. There's a lot of utility on the market for Boise State for a pistol round, and it is a tough play to counteract. Shots from JP, trying to crossfire with Instinct, but it doesn't work their way, and now Instinct has to do a 1v4. Make it 3 as Skies goes in for a quick sprint. It's doable, especially if you can isolate maybe Master this way. But Master has been so clean with it this half for Boise State. And we talk a lot about how gunplay has been elevated with this patch. It has really been highlighted for this roster. And St. Clair have been struggling to find those first bloods. Just a total difference from what we've seen from them in prior series. Timing for Spice is just falling back. Instinct now completely known. They're moving in here towards the A site. Instinct will jump up on boxes, sees Master way off in the distance, and will take TP instead. Yes, you're worried about the Spice player, but Daimyo's too far away, and you may have a free chance to jump through if you go through this decay and get some shots towards KOS. A spike plant could be in the market, but you'll have to do so quickly before that Daimyo player lapping back through attacker's side goes for a push through Octagon to keep you honest, and the timing is so tight. There's just no free way to do it when that KOS Viper is just dominating everything. Perfect, I think, is an understatement for how well Boise State counter-read a single player, completely trapping and enveloping them within a site.
I mean, every single time. I mean, clearly it was the double swing that you were setting back towards, you know, on that spawn side, but you don't want a player crossing over because you don't want to be taking a gunfight and losing a player for nothing. You're just know that there's a default. Hey, brother, sit back. Calm down, Master. Calm down. Just don't do anything just yet. Let the snake bite do a little bit of talking there. Let our entire utility come out. Let our full kits do some work here, and to lighten the load from us as players. I understand kills are very important for you as a duelist, but seeing the way they did that, you can win rounds in other ways. And just seeing that suffocating environment really just culminating on the side of St. Clair there was huge and very well played. But in a round like this, it seems to dismantle a little bit, giving themselves some coverage back towards main. They make the cross, but the issue is the players that are left behind are basically left for dead because none of them are standing by the end of that encounter.
Yeah, you're worried about never getting a sequel. Well, you've gotten it here, it feels like, and Boise State are riding through the St. Clair contestant early. Great stun. Jazzykins is completely pressed in here, trying to look around to get some sort of visual. Not much you can really do, as Master will go through a wall shot to deal with you with an outlaw. 11 now to Boise State. You didn't drop nearly enough weapons out of the St. Clair's hands, or sorry, out of Boise State's hands if you are St. Clair. So it's still a dirty third round in front of you, and look at how the first half went. They started with 3 in a row. They get there, they're at match point, and you forcing a third map. And heading over to Ascent with how good Boise State have been in the gun department, I hate to break it to you, I would not want to be the Saints going into a play like that.
Well, keep in mind, the Saints were the ones who kind of had that first pick of the band. So when it comes around to the map selection, they have more agency over that final map than Boise State does. So, I mean, we've seen this team on Ascent as well. Boise State obviously having their own rapport when it comes to that map, having their own history as well. I mean, what collegiate team, what team in general doesn't? But there's still rounds to go, still a chance to keep this one alive because, as we talked about it earlier, round differential is everything when you're looking at this tiebreaker. So they want to make sure this thing rides out as long as humanly possible, just in case.
Holding on to sight. Barrier orb, a great way to buy time. But you still have to survive the rotate in eventually from 90, and Jazzykins just hasn't been able to find a safe space in any of these rounds, let alone this one here. And it's a 3-on-3 equal. Tillo worried about the decoy. Still hiding behind the Radiant stack. One player in Hookah. Timing is tight. You got them flanking you, and Skelesis is good for it. Now putting a salvo off towards 90 and one towards defender side spawn. Nowhere to go. It's a double lineup. Could have been a chance, but I think Boise State have just punched their ticket to a map 3. It'll be match point. Just 15 rounds in. You have to play a near perfect game on a map like Bind with how flippy-floppy it can be at halves, but they've done it here and opened this one up. St. Clair are exposed with their bellies up on Bind.
And even then, with how easily Thrifties can come in your direction as well. I mean, knowing that if we do see Boise State lose a couple rounds, they don't have the money in one point or another, this map is so close, so contested, especially being on the defensive end of things. You were just holding these angles. You're waiting for these players to push you. That one judge can make very quick work of the entirety of an opposing team. That's why it's been such a popular pick historically, and even after the nerfs that was done a while back, it's still a popular pick here. It's just been more so put in its place. So talking about place and time is very, very important. And with the showstopper being popped on both ends of the map, their instinct able to go ahead and find that one through the door. None of them found towards Spices, but Tyga still manages 2 in the collateral.
Wow, maybe a chance for the Saints to start rolling in. JP will be the first one active in towards the A side. The team now following in behind. Daimyo sitting just on the inside of Shower's default for 89 stack. It's a cross up for Jazzy Kids. Can't get more past that. It's the third for Tyga. St. Clair will also work towards getting the spike down and keeping KOS away from the objective. Where do you move from here? Guardian's going to be the first thing to really contest you. Can JP win this fight? KOS, I feel like, is a good enough player. They've won most of their fights at this point, and they've been kind of the clutch king in terms of utility with that clutch prowess. Matter in a gunfight this close? No. Your doppelganger for the Saints side will come away with the win in that 1v1. And one of the only wins we've really seen St. Clair find early in this map of fight. It's hard-pressed. They got 3 in a row at the start. Hey, they did it. And then they went in a major drought. 6 in a row. And the 3 in the next half. 9 in a row in total that Boise State were able to come back the other way with.
It's crazy how we're seeing 3-1s just so consistently inside this series so far. It's such a weird mold to fit into, but I mean, still a testament to what these teams can accomplish whenever the odds are stacked against them. But I feel like that round, unfortunately, was for St. Clair, at least. Boise State more so disrespecting them, feeling themselves, getting a little more confident on these gunfights. And you can see it right here. They just want to press W, find the fights as quick as possible because they know they are shooting much better on this map.
Something's changed in the Saints locker room or something. It's not the same roster in terms of gunplay as it was in the map of Lotus, and Boise State have keyed into that. That is a gorgeous display of understanding what is winning for them and what is working, and they come through with force to be reckoned with. 1 for 1, Daimyo just needed to get a kill to make sure they can maintain that player advantage. They do so. Now a playthrough defender spawn. JP has to win that fight, and if you don't, you are going to lose out. And there it is. 13 rounds will go in favor for Boise State. 4 and only 4 for St. Clair. And we're going to map 3 in a series that everybody anticipated would probably be a 2-0 for the St. Clair roster. Boise State have broken this one open on its head.
Well, more specifically, Skies and Master did. I mean, when you look at that entire attacking side that Boise State brought to the table, it was definitely a highlight show for them in some regard. Seeing the kills being made, them playing hand in hand in that, doing exactly the way a team should be on the attacking side with both duels working and coinciding together to find that cumulative goal. And even then, the way it was done, Master was more so the one actually facilitating a lot of these pushes, finding a lot of those critical kills, but it was Skies during those clutch moments knowing that, I mean, I'm the flush guy, I'm the AoE damage, being the Rays, and making sure to find those assists where necessary. It is just immaculate the way that they really performed during that first half, making the second one near flawless for them, but also making it just so darn easy to execute. So as things go, Ascent is going to follow that same exact formula, I feel, in terms of mind. It's not a 3-site map, and Spawn isn't, you know, just a little kick away. It's not right around the corner. Hey, there you guys are. It's much more longer lined, and that's something I'm looking forward to see really how St. Clair is going to adjust to.
Yeah, so for Boise State, the big fear, Dallas, is always, do they have too many cooks in the kitchen? They've got players that do coaching on the free time. They've got, IGLs, potentials all across the roster. Right. That has obviously been a painting point for them across multiple series. It felt like they're overthinking things. They drop to the basics. They play like they're all IGLing because they're confident in the way that they perform and play. And look at the way that just completely blows open a map like Bind against a really competitive team like the St. Clair roster is. But SCC, unfortunately, can't get through me if you're Boise State, and they'll say, we're ready for map 3. And with that being said, we are too, but not before a break, so don't go anywhere. Map 3 coming up next.
Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 Pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 Pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard.
So a map 1 that was, well, easily St. Clair's to say, but a map 2 that we thought was going to be a bit more back and forth, but Boise State blew out of the water to get us into map 3, and it's a sense now for our finale. We joked earlier, why are so many of our Division 1 games just 2-0s? Well, they heard our pleas, I should say, and our plight here with the Division 1. It's now a third map coming through.
Yeah, and that's a little unfortunate for both these teams, because regardless of who really wins, having this go to a map number 3, especially in the same kind of fashion, really doesn't look good for either squad in the round differential in the big scheme of things. Knowing that, I mean, seeing that 13-5, 13-5, and it's a pretty big difference when you look at things across the board. And knowing that map number 3, no matter who wins this, the score differential will be the same, but what does the rest of the season look like? And I think Boise State's had a bit more of a rougher record, I would say, overall than St. Clair. It feels like a couple of these matches, they've had themselves some pretty dominant wins. Meanwhile, Boise State, they've had some impressive showings for sure, but it hasn't really reflected inside of the actual scoreline overall. But who really knows? Because if St. Clair ends up winning this when it's not going to matter, this is more so Boise State's game to just completely rob rather than just win.
One of the things I mentioned on map 1 was, can Boise State get enough of a lead on their attacking starting to make that second half manageable to hold on and come over with a victory? Yeah. They couldn't. Completely drowned out by the just defensive powerhouse that was proven to be from St. Clair. Turn that over to map 2, complete opposite story. They did what I asked them to do. They did what I said was going to be required for them to do. Get enough of a lead on their offense that the second half becomes, 1, a battle for St. Clair to buy back into it, and number 2, become a mental battle for St. Clair to buy back into it. Right. You could tell. And I'll be honest here, I'm sure the fans out there won't be too happy, but I'll say it outright straight. That team was demoralized exiting that end of bind. They weren't shooting straight. They weren't fighting straight. They were struggling to put things together. And you compare that to the way they were on map 1. We entered that break and I straight up said, where has St. Clair gone? Because that is not the same team that was there on map 1.
Yeah, I mean, even you can see him kind of wrapping it up a little bit. I mean, Jazzy, obviously, that last play there, popping the annihilation, looking to see just isolate the players to the best of her ability to kind of just favor the fight in her direction as best she could. But still, also kind of a bit of a kamikaze call, I'd call it. I mean, just seeing how things are, saying one last push, might as well get our best shot. Win it out, great little rally. But still got to buy up and force the next one and over and over and over after that. But seeing things as they're going into Ascent, not too much of a big difference, I'd say, in terms of the roles of the players on the side of St. Clair, and Boise State, rightfully so, kind of keeping everybody else in that same regard. And Master on the Yoru, they don't have a Jet or anything like that, but that's perfect because it's not a big difference when St. Clair doesn't have it either.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked to see Sky's not on that Jet. It's a player that can absolutely play Jets, but Boise State really like having that Yoru, and they don't really want to go for the double duelist necessarily. And if you're going to get good kills, do it on a Headhunter, do it on a Tour de Force wielding Chamber, and bring value to the defensive side of things, because that's really what's up in the air. They start on offense. They get enough of a lead, like we've said before, they could change the entirety of this game on its head. And St. Clair could be a team that was talked about in our mentions of being the 3rd, 4th, 5th best team in the league, now being put next to teams like Ohio State, who have had a tumultuous start, Utah, who have had a very good series of games, but just haven't been able to come away with victories and have been improving leaps and bounds, but not enough to come away with that first dub in the league just yet. How has it come to this? Well, off of miracle plays and absolute gunmanship from Boise State once that big patch came through, just tearing the light out of a team that very well never thought would it come this close.
Well, it really comes down to how this map goes, and with the initial rollout, default, looking towards the center of the map, that's a box that us as casters always stress to check. And thankfully, Boise State has started off with that. Will it remain consistent? Will it remain persistent, better yet? That's a question we're going to have to answer over the course of this map. But as it kicks off right now, the only thing keeping track of that middle of the map is going to be that turret from the B-side market. So, looking for a bit of a backup, some reinforcements back towards that defender side spawn. That's all you're really playing with at the moment, but Dazzy could nail a couple of these, or at least get the info to say, hey, maybe a grab net goes out, maybe I give a little bit of help. Trying to, because, I mean, more likely they're on site by now, so it's up to you guys there.
There you go, Bolt. Very wary, but Instinct's still good for their kill onto Skies. Make it 2 to Skelesis. expecting for more, but a good connection overall from Boise State's offense, and now it's a refrag game for St. Clair. Tillo so close. Here's the steps pounding nearby. Just needs to keep this spike honest and away from position to fight. KOS will be forced off. Right-click attempt from the Classic. You're pushing on stairwell. Taiga maybe had a chance. It's forcing you back even further, and there's no chance. Just fall back away. And a round victory for St. Clair, just to get something working your way. I'm denying the spike plant as well for no credits to your name. Round 1 for the Saints, and they needed this one desperately with how things started to look poorly at the end of Bind.
Again, so chaotic of a first round. Like, we never see these instances where it goes down to those final couple seconds, or you got a player running away just to win off time in a pistol. Especially when Boise State seems so confident of pushing that B site through market. So it's one of those points where, I mean, unfortunate they didn't win that one out, but also good for St. Clair to understand that they didn't let that last map discourage them too much, because getting that pick on the Master from Tillo, that was really it, because Master was the one that we were concerned about the most. Master is the one that we were highlighting the most during that last map, and going ahead and finding that kill, very, very important.
Judge out. Instincts looking to keep him back. We'll get Crash back towards Garden.
Draw that line.
Yeah, there's no need to do it. Skies has a headhunter in hand. We talk a lot about how Chamber feels like this eco warrior, can pull things off in big rounds, and you're hoping that will be the case here for a player as good as Skies is. But the Caster's Curse comes to bear fruit, and they will have to now be relegated to watching their teammates in the afterlife and switching cams for the teammate next to them. Jazzy Ken's on site for A, deals with Master, and Spike's nowhere near. It will be a B-site attempt, as the both players now that are left with Daimyo's death are inside of lobby. And Skelesis is caught with Util out, but it's not Skelesis who dies. In fact, their teammate dies, but it may not matter. JP gets the final 2. Flawless for St. Clair. No more desperate measures for desperate folks like we saw in round 1 with how crazy that one turned into. This one was pretty clear-cut from the beginning from them.
Yeah, I mean, even then holding on to all their weapons in the process, I mean, obviously a big play there. Going to be carrying over some pretty solid weapons, but not perfect weapons. I mean, you're not going to have these Vandals or Phantoms to work with, but you're going to have something, and that's all that really matters. I mean, clearly a Judge to work with over towards the AR and the Omen hands, and seeing the Spectres making a play there towards middle of the map, but thankfully you're on the defensive end, so you're not really kind of pushing out too much. At least I thought that was the case, but instead, knowing the instinct push with the Judge in the last round, still once again draws that line in this one, because you don't want to put yourself in a kind of situation where you're no longer in a close quarter ballistics situation. You want to keep these sight lines short. You want to be in areas that feel somewhat suffocating, or you're seeing a lot of utility being invested in. Here it is, discipline on the field, and 2 is your reward for JP.
This is exactly what you want to see. KOS, though, getting a lot of leverage back the other way with Tiger's HP pool starting to dwindle. Attempt there with the Nano Swarm. JP maybe gets a little bit too heavy in the paint, but the price has been paid, and it's mostly Boise State bearing the brunt of that cost. But KOS, speaking of cost, is making things costly. St. Clair reload out. KOS can't survive this next one, and Skies wasn't there ready in time. Spike is dropped in a spot that's visible, but it looks like we'll see vacating from St. Clair to allow them to collect this and to idealize maybe a push towards a site where they can get the audio cues for it. As you have a player in A lobby, one back towards defender spawn. If Skies moves here towards the A site, they'll be penciled in from 2 ends, and Skies is really struggling to make a proper decision for it. Now peeking through bottom mid, Tillo will lap back over towards A, and Skies will move in to market to go for this B site. They're running out of time, though. I don't even think they'll have enough if they start sprinting from this point onwards. It takes a pretty big time to get through this door as well. They'll have just a couple seconds to get through to go for it. We'll set up the util. The timing will be tight, but they'll have just enough to get this one down.
1v2, Chamber doesn't really have much to work with, and with a recon bolt telling you everything you need to know of where this guy's going to be at, a couple stray shots, a nice couple hits there, and some damage to back it up, you're just playing numbers here. One guy's going to jump out, go ahead, do exactly what you do. I mean, this is something that you and I have seen Cumberland just be flawless in, honestly. I mean, that is, when you talk about one teammate throwing their life on the line, working for the number for the next, I mean, Maryville also does a great job of that, and Winthrop has a bit of work, but I mean, definitely has a strong foundation for it. But it's these circumstances where other teams realize that maybe this is the best idea right now. And you can do that in any round you want, but times like that, it's just blatantly obvious it's the best option. So a 3-0 start for St. Clair, getting things running right back where you left off. But talking about that mold, seeing how things were, following some patterns, we have seen 3-1s a lot tonight.
Yeah, maybe a bit more than I would say I'm comfortable with. What has gone wrong with my esport of Valorant? But yet, here we are. Skies will have the ability to relocate. Turret gives a bit of information. JP will stand in after the fact. Crosshair placement will be big. JP, you're giving away your position. I really wouldn't want to stand there and continue to stand there if you saw it was a chamber that way, but they'll eventually relocate away and, well, try to go for more, but only die out in the process of trying to tap that button. 5-on-4. Where you want to be if you're St. Clair, Dallas. Which is also easy to lose players if they get good shots out, and Master's so good about it. You were low on HP, and your team is still deciding to stick to holding bottom mid, and they're paying out for it. Instinct just needs a single shot to eviscerate any of them at any point in the round, let alone now that they're already low. And the spray through with the Owl Drone pip there against Skelesis. You radar out what's remaining, and KOS is the only one remaining, and it's a wallbang for Instinct. Nice round, but not enough to keep Boise State from getting a couple weapons extra dropped out of the hands of St. Clair.
And that's the scariest thing right there, finding the 4-0. We have seen the 3-1s. We have seen the comebacks. We have seen the fire burn up from under these players to get their rears moving, but it's unfortunate that here on Ascent of all places, that's the one where we don't really get to see it there. And this is the map that teams can really snowball more than anything else just because of how long this map's been around, how the adjustments should be in play, where we should be seeing that 2-1 if anything. But a 4-0 is unprecedented for at least the night. So looking forward, looking at what's really going to be provided next out of Boise State is, well, an operator at hand, trying to maybe throw a curveball in there. And nobody's there to meet you.
Owl Drone down through bottom mid. Talk all about how important information is. This one will go through. Does it connect? I believe it does. Yes, indeed. These guys will have to try to crawl around here through Pompey with maybe an attempt at a visual. The Very Orb goes down, though, and that relay bolt will not really get much off. Flash attempt. Also clearing out the sonar alarm. It's Master. From a range unprecedented to deal with Tillo. And Master takes a lick of damage through Jazzykins' spray. A second one. Trying to bait there a decoy. But Master will not be allowed to bait Jazzykins out. And it's a 4 versus 3 now. With really no great ability to get in towards sight. Because you have a Sentinel still ready to hold down this archway. And Taiga nearby that very well can send a paranoia out the moment they feel some contention going their way.
I don't even think that was a bait for a decoy. I mean, there would have been some kind of audible, whether it was the summon or the clumping of the feet leading into that wall. I think Jazzy just made the swing, and Master was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I was kind of lining up to do a side, maybe a wide swing there, but just kind of beat me to it. So in a 3v4 situation, Boise State is very clearly dedicating themselves towards this A site, but there are 2 players on site remaining. Make that 3, and technically a 4th if you're counting the decoy, because the shots will find the flash, and well, next thing you know, you're cutting down more and more and more, where the spike plant isn't even a consideration by the end of it.
It's like heading to a butcher's shop. St. Clair just needed to trim the fat, the parts that were weighing them down on map 2 to prepare for what could be here in map 3. They would have loved to likely get this done in 2. Their headspace wasn't exactly where it should have been. Now they're trying to move into a moment of relaxation and recovery. Timeout call for Boise State. They cheered. Boise State cheered when the timeout was called for St. Clair, the one that we had highlighted. They were stalling down in middle, right through outside of hookah. They were like, yeah, we'll just die to spike at the end. It's a 1v5. It's no way it's happening. So Tilla was just waiting. They called the timeout. Boise State were cheering. This is not a moment where St. Clair are cheering that a timeout's being called for Boise State. They're taking this very seriously. Comms are being made. Seth wants to ensure that this is a victory. And to do that, they need to stay all on the same page. Because the moment you give something to Boise State, Dallas, it feels like they take a mile. Give them an inch, they rip a mile out by force. And that's just how effective those players, when they go crazy, feel like they can do absolutely anything. Like you've got 5 Tenses in a lobby because their gunshots are just infinitely better than yours are at any of those moments. And that is a thing that had to shift going into map 3.
I mean, it's okay if that happens, too, here for St. Clair as well. They give that inch over to Boise State. It just matters on the timing of it. Does it happen at the end of a half? Because it has to get reset at that point. You go right back to the eco where everybody's on a pistol and just kind of resets that momentum completely because they have to have that shift of the mindset going to the opposing side. And we saw that over on Lotus, but on Bind, that wasn't much of a consideration because they had so much length already accumulated. But by the time you got yourself over to the other half, you didn't really have to go very far.
Where, oh, where will the side of Boise State move their offense? Courtyard, a power play for a lot of teams on Ascent, but you also see some teams avoiding this line of sight. It allows for really easy transitions in play, but it's a good frag early out from Instinct to counter the play through B lobby. You did get another one off screen as well, so it's 2 for your efforts, and St. Clair were able to claw back after the initial Daimyo Sheriff shots that levied them that evening frag for the second of the round. You have the third one going. Your action potentially on the horizon for a B site take. Decoys moving in both directions, and Master is very aware of the fact they could be inside of this long haul cubby just on their right, but has no way to trust this. Needs a secondary level of pressure, a tertiary outlook into sight, and that would like to be through Courtyard down into Market Dallas to give them some sort of visual, but if they have to go in flat, make sure you have the utility to back it up, and they do have a flash still in Master's back pocket, and they can even maybe gate crash to close the gap a little bit further. Sorry, go for the decoy to close the gap a little bit further, just to maybe worm something the other way. As they do send it out. Here we go. Master flashing with it. Do they get spotted? Not gonna happen. Instinct shuts it down, reads it, and now waits for the next one of Skies. And with Tillo's assistance, they dodge all of the potential woes. It's 4 for Instinct, with Tillo getting the final. Full house, clean one for St. Clair.
An unanswered 6 on the board. Another round loss for Boise State when they have the full buy at hand. Things once again getting a little bit awkward as you see that KOS at the top of the board has a Guardian and full shields, but I mean still an amenable weapon by the end of it. Still, I mean, you want that rifle. You want to see all your teammates be on the same page as well, because Skelesis obviously has the half. You see the sacrifice for the operator being made for the half as well. So it's these kinds of, you know, whims and goes that we see Boise State making in exchange to get themselves another round to work with. Well, the ultimate's a hand, dimensional drift in the field. Saw that one coming from a mile away. Now, will any of the players on St. Clair know where we're going to see Master once again kind of come back to the surface?
Shots trying to go out. Tip your teammate with it. That's fine, Tillo, as long as the teammates can survive on site and get these frags. Instinct is good for the first. Master is deep on site. Great way to read exactly where to lay that crosshair out, and that's where map understanding really elevates any individual player, let alone a roster. St. Clair now in a 4-on-4. Dimensional drift the other way as Instinct looks for some intel. No Skies is there. Has no real way to clear this. Decoy to try to flush. And the lockdown out the other way. Flash around the bend. The relocate. Can't get Skies far enough away. Now you just have to wait this out for a couple seconds because the spike's not even down yet, folks. Boise State haven't even been able to put this down, meaning that they don't buy 10 seconds of necessary post-plant time. It'll just be 2 at the end of it. Skelesis gets a pip there off towards Instinct inside B lobby. Where is your secondary level of assistance? Well, they're with you inside Boathouse, completely trapped in both ends. Alarm bot goes down. Skeletons can't survive the shots from Taiga, and KOS has to now go for a 4K alone is only good for the first as a shorty comes sprinting through to give St. Clair their 7th round win.
Guaranteeing themselves an advantage at the end of the half. Regardless, unanswered so far is a scary sight here, especially for Boise State when you had such an impressive showing on Bind and you just can't really put that final nail in the coffin when it matters most. Because, as I said, this is their best chance, literally, in terms of the standing being one map off, how things are going for them, the entire high they were riding coming into this map from their performance in the last, knowing the pick was not only going your direction, but essentially handed this to you on a silver platter, but that is the fickle mistress that Ascent is. We talk about it's where good teams go to die, or more specifically what you say a lot. Well, I think it's a place where great teams and even amazing teams show their mastery. And not only do we see a score differential that's, you know, large in its own right, it's flawless so far. And that is something that you cannot really put a price on.
Getting flashbacks now, seeing JP tucked away on Cubby just below Market Door. We saw that quite a bit last year, didn't we? This is a player you don't want to test that direction, especially if you're not looking to clear your corners. And Boise State haven't been perfect about it. We obviously saw plenty of those issues for both teams on Map 1 and even into Map 2. at least been trying on map 3. And with an eco round for Boise State, they could try to do what we saw so often happen in round 4. Rifles v pistols, or whatever you can scrounge up to recover a round win. Alarm bot will force Jazzykins to know somebody is approaching me in from market. JP will continue to watch through that initial B lobby door. Continue to tuck over there towards Cubby. And you do have that tour de force, so a viable round. But you're doing so dangerously, and JP knows that somebody is coming their way, and it's a matter of making sure your tracers go unknown as Daimyo Shrouded steps back to get an extra level of a tertiary shot off. Maybe Master will be flashed here. There it is. Great connection from Jazzykins. You got to check your corners, though. I just commented on it, folks. And we see it come through to give a rifle, but the time is out. The door is closing down. And you got to get Spike onto sight, and that paranoia connects. There's no way, as there will be no time. Maybe, I think it's like 0.1, even if it did, it doesn't matter. Tillo is there with an Odin, and St. Clair go 8-0 to start this. And Boise State can just closer and closer, it seems like, every round, but not yet getting their chance.
Yeah, a game of nanoseconds, and every single frame counts there. I mean, in terms of putting the gun down, picking the gun up, actually being able to fight back, I mean, just not really going to work out for you because, I mean, that 4 seconds that you're actually planning is much larger than anything else of a window and what's left. So a very clear call there, very clean kill to be made, almost essentially free by the end of it because, you know, nobody's going to be shooting back at you. But an 8th round for St. Clair once again spells trouble for Boise State. They had a buy in the last one to some degree, at least a couple upgrades, acquiesce, because the tour de force was in hand. But now you got rifles, so what can you do with this? You're trying to see really what's going to be given up to you, but St. Clair has drawn that line in the sand, definitively. They haven't set any players up towards the middle of the map. They're letting the KJ utility take care of that. They want players on these sites. They want to make these sites feel miserable to take. They've done a great job so far, but this could be the one where this entire game plan of a flawless 13-0 just goes right out the window.
Still the potential for Master to relocate if they wanted to. Tillo's in the back of sight towards Boathouse. From the shadows will be used as a way to get a little bit of information. Trying to join in alongside Tillo, but the speed is too much. Great spray through for one, and that's really what you're looking for. St. Clair are down that player, but they've got a great cross set up here off back towards defender side barrel. And KOS, Master, and Skies are all that remain now on site for Boise State. No ultimates for either side. If they manage to keep their KJ alive, yeah, the lockdown could have been here. But JP could not survive that initial shot from the early fight of Master. And now they're left with really not much remaining. Ready Night stack, no one's there. 2 in the back of Boathouse. KOS with a great swing, full flash though. If they try to move in for more, Jazzykins gets a good frag back the other way, but you still have to work through a mountain in front of you as Master waits for the crossover swing. Gets there one. Jazzykins, time is running out, and KOS could play this for time. You push forward, shorty in hand, and there it is, a 4K for Jazzykins. But time is too far gone, and Boise State will still be given their first attacking round win in map 3.
You'll take the round you can get. St. Clair also understand that considering that round win, what did it cost? And, well, you lost every single one of your players, and you barely have enough money to buy up for this one. As you can see, Skelesis is running that Spectre in the full armor, but Master has half armor, and Daimyo has literally none at all. So it was a very, very big price to pay, but, I mean, I can understand going for the force here, trying to double down, trying to see really what you can do, because I believe that Skelesis is going to be just kind of more so holding this background, playing towards that A main, trying to work with the Hunter's Fury, use it more reactively in terms of holding the spike, or even more so if that KJ lockdown comes into play.
Master has a ton of control now all the way through long, and that's what you have 3 teammates along with you to go through with that. Paranoid clears out, dark covers gives space, initiating utility or Sova puts a player in a pocket position. And they can always just TP out of there with a gate crash, right? That is so big for an attacking lineup. But we'll see it on the other end as well for however many rounds we see from St. Clair's offense when it comes down to it. JP, though, has been clued into an audio cue is waiting for just a little bit of a noise to place down this lockdown. Honestly, needs to use it before much happens. Just go ahead and do so here. There it is. Master goes for the dimensional drift. Hunter's Fury to attempt to stall even further, but they use this now to break away the lockdown. And you're just baiting out ultimates. That's the value you're gaining here. JP giving comms while moving forward within the smoke, trying to hide, worried about the possibility it's a decoy spray through. No matter what, it is Boise State getting their one. They're eating good on this B site now, worried about this post plant.
Just looking for things here, honestly, on the side of St. Clair. Clearly, you're a man down. Don't have ultimates to answer back. You had the lockdown. That was your sole escape that you had to work with. But it was more so, as you said, a way to bait things out. Because guess what? The bait is the players remaining. Fish in a barrel when you're sitting on site like that. And it makes a quick cleanup for St. Clair to work with.
9-1. Scoreline gets further and further in favor for St. Clair. And even when it was a arguable advantage for Boise State, they had enough time to stabilize a post plant, though nobody could sit back towards B lobby. They had one player all the way in courtyard worming their way through markets. The timing was too tight, and St. Clair had already switched door and ensured that the audio queue for it would be so easy once they started breaking it down. Nothing matters if you can't recover the scoreline for the second half. 2 more, though. You have to survive, and truly, Dallas, it feels like you have to thrive. If you don't win these next 2 and you're Boise State, 1, St. Clair will get double digits here if this is an eco round and we don't see Boise State make a huge return the way we saw round 4 go the last few maps. You're going to have a hard time keeping them away from 11 just after that fact, as Boise State will need to pressure forward quickly with these sheriffs and more in their back pocket.
And Annihilation already used, so that's not going to really be a factor unless Jazz just goes ballistic in this round. But everyone else still just making quick work of this one. Boise State throwing that round out on the field, just trying to see what sticks, and unfortunately it's just nothing but butter. So, see how things are going to go for this one. You talked about it earlier. What's the Saints going to look like? What's the kind of utility at play? I mean, it is just going to be a foundation of that lockdown. That's the one thing you have to work with. That is the one ace up the sleeve that you can really try to use and work around to give yourself something, aka maybe a post-plant stance. But again, when you look at the side of St. Clair, one player is at 2, another one's at 2 as well for something a little more expensive, and one of those being that Sova and the Hunter's Fury being completely reactionary. But you kind of set the pace here, honestly, considering how hard you are ahead.
With that knowledge, how do Boise State decide to move forward? Tons of damage, possibly forward to try to deal with Jazzy. The barrier will eventually be cleared as well. A shrouded step to fall back even further. Boise State have at least put, once again, a player in a very solid cubby position to try to fight for a solid front. It's all about leveraging 2 to 3 players against 1 to leave someone there. It's like having a tank and you drop your gunner off somewhere, right? You're moving them into territory to hold on to it. They'll be a constant unknown threat. And speaking of being unknown, Tilla was not known within markets, which gives you a great cross disguise. Who's trying to continue to pressure back towards defender spawn for the player they saw cross back that way. DK within market, but you worked instead direct through Archway, and Instinct gets one of the 2 remaining in that next fight, leaving just Master alone, full flashed and flawless for the St. Clair Saints. 11-1. Your final score at the end of the first half. And how will this pan out when the pistol rounds have been so interesting? But man, oh man, it feels like St. Clair have had the better end of a lot of them with gunplay. And they've been the gunplay king so far on a set.
Yeah, just trying to keep this thing rolling, honestly. I mean, Boise State clearly, as I said earlier, just kind of counting these rounds, making sure to get them one by one and just make this game look feasible to them. But you cannot look at the top of that screen no matter what. You need to just put tape over those 2 spots, if anything.
Doc can get in there, start putting tape on their monitors.
Just make sure you can still see the green and yellow borders. And ultimates are very important, so don't cover that much. Don't mess with the margins or the aspect ratio, but definitely just kind of make sure that they are zoned in on a particular point, and that is just winning. See the victories accumulate one by one by one. And that's what St. Clair's going to have to do here as well, clearly. They can't start to disrespect Boise State. They can't start to mess around, and it's really hard to do that on a pistol round, all things considered. So hitting a first shot as Sky's following things up, that's what you need. Find these entries, find the way to slow them down, and definitely dwindle their numbers in the process.
Wow, what a round right now from Boise State. Tyga alone gets there 1, but it's karmic justice. It goes still for the remainder of that. You had Skells just hitting a great shock dart onto Jazzykins right at the archway. She didn't move away in time. That left her very low for a second shock dart on the actual approach in. That's 1 cleanup kill. Sky's obviously getting away with the rendezvous melee after they get a headhunter shot out, and then that's more damage from the market door, and you get pressure with the player who has to extend into you because a well-placed recon boat from Tillo forces them to push into market. market so they don't get double pipped by it. Little things where that utility drives such a difference. And when it's such a slim series as a whole and such a slim margin that you need to win out these rounds, as we've seen across both maps, they've been totally different styles of victory for both teams. You're taking what you can. St. Clair trying to go forward there with instinct to the shorty, trying to use the gate crash to close the gap. Not going to matter, and it's a 4 versus 5 very early for this next round.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have a Yoru. You're going to try to do whatever you can. Flash is not really going to give you the kind of angle that you want because guess what? Nobody's going to be playing that close to the kinds of guns at hand. So the shorty rush is going to be an attempt on something, but not really going to amount to much. As JP is perusing around the map, seeing what kill can be sneaked out. Maybe another one that can be given up, but Skelesis wants no part in this. Says, go ahead and plant that spike. We will come back for a retake. We will find the kills we need, and in that case, we will win the round as a result. But you don't want to give up anything for free just to get that, because one more player down means one player closer to having no player advantage at all.
Spike planted.
Still was even able to grab the ult orb in B lobby as well, Dallas. So maybe this is just St. Clair saying you want the credits for the spike plant. We want to try to make this costly, and that's really what it should be. A great connection there. Outlaw connected. JP not able to escape back in time. And now Tillo's alone, and yeah, they know exactly where they've got to spray through. They don't expect a player without a weapon to sit inside Boathouse, even when it's planted for that. Always just pre-spray it anyways. And you drop 2 weapons out of Boise State's hands. And St. Clair could have had a lot more value out of the round, but they can give themselves a pat on the back. They get spiked down, they get value out of the ult orb they collected in B main. Bit of a macro economy to the overall just scope creep that is throughout this second half, you know, the remainder that will have to be for them, and how wide this gap is, 8 between these two teams. You gotta say, they got enough where they feel there's value in it, and they'll have weapons for every player and armor as well to work with heading into this third.
I mean, that's great looks for Boise State. As I said earlier, just go ahead. Don't worry about what's on the screen, or at least at the top of it. Just try to keep on continuing these rounds as if you were at a tie game, and next thing you know, you're just playing an OT. Just keeping things rolling like an infinite little scrim going on right now. But obviously lots of less mistakes because, well, we still know that there's a lot at stake. So you need to make sure that this thing is perfect. Even better than the first half that we saw in Bind from them. They don't have much leeway for a mistake here. They don't have much of a leniency to really, you know, even give up players with the economy and how things are going. And Skies is kicking things off really well. Finds a first. Pushing out for possibly a second. But even then, still not worried about the actual objective or players at hand around the map. Wants to go for a weapon and wants to make sure you can provide the team with a little more firepower.
There's goes Skies, moved in by Tillo. Frag going in St. Clair's way, and some shots connecting to Skelesis and force them even further back. It's a pursuit now into B. Dark cover laid to maybe give Skelesis an angle, but it doesn't go deep enough to allow them to move into that site safely, and that's where you're seeing the cleanup crew for St. Clair come through. Tillo picking the wrong way. Maybe a problem that Boise State will use to their advantage as Master goes for a great flash, forcing JP further back. And JP, a player we've talked so much about for St. Clair, inconsistent right now, not just within this game and series, but we've seen it as a consistent issue throughout Division 1. That's not the play we're expecting that to be true for. Quick use now, the paranoia. Extension now, Master sprays through to both, and it's Boise State pulling through no matter what, overcoming the odds in front of them, and St. Clair, you're stuck there once that spike carrier's dead. You had no one to cover that boathouse for them, and they went in blindly and paid the price because of it. Little thing that now very well gives Boise State the perfect buy.
Thought about the possibility of a cross, waited for the paranoia to come through that boathouse, maybe giving you a bit of advantage in that gunfight when Master didn't budge a muscle there. Just was really faking things out over and over, playing the Yoru exactly the way he should be played. Making people think too much about something that just has such a simple solution. Maybe he didn't move. Maybe he didn't do anything at all. And, well, if you were in the 1% that guessed that, then maybe you should go help Seth out in the coach's booth, because that'd be crazy.
Taiga will hide within that smoke for a moment. Maybe I saw the potential for St. Clair looking to extend a player deeply onto that A site, but without knowing where the utility has been put up. Question is, where's that KJ util? Where's the Sentinel in play? You don't really want to worry about it just yet. And you've lost a teammate in a drastic fight down long here through courtyard from top mid to bottom mid. And Taige's got information that there is, in fact, not much to do in Garden. If you can get past it, you thought you cleared out Master and Hell, but that's not, unfortunately, the case. And St. Clair will still be at a player disadvantage. Yes, 5 HP to the player below, but you don't have any way to buy into this round. You don't have a way to get forward for some chances. Skies takes a ton of damage from JP. Dallas, 40 seconds. There's still so much time left for them to move forward.
A lot of time and a lot of space as well. You just know it's not really going to be there through the tree. And when you hear that Odin just blaring through with nothing but a bunch of sheriffs in hand, you're just looking for an opportunity, maybe for a reload, maybe too many bullets to just go astray, because you're just going to be pushing that out instead. But the call is made for Master saying, hey, they're pushing up. They're going through tree. They're going in the garden, and you still don't get the call there. But they have to get on the A site no matter what. So finding 1, 2, 3. This round is won out by St. Clair, surprisingly.
How have they pulled off what seemed impossible for so much of that? Sheriff shots ring out and spell demise for Boise State. Their defense couldn't hold on, and St. Clair's mobility, their pressure, that suffocating force that we spent so much of our pre-show, Dallas, talking about how this team likes to move in slow, providing pressure elsewhere, a slow boa constrictor of pressure. We see it broil to a point, and it overflows in the pot, and it was a problem, but they finally put a lid on it, and it kept Boise State stuck within as they got boiled alive on A. And now, with the deadlock using the wall to keep them indoor, it's a quick sprint to the A site, and there's really not much you can do for your Boise State here except be forced to wait things out as you're pressured and even given the free blood away for the first.
Yeah, just one by one, where you could see them fall or we could see them strive. It really comes down to how they want to take advantage of the chaos at hand. Master on site with Dimensional Drift, trying to sniff out really what's going on around here, get the information to the rest of the team. A duelist playing almost like an IGL, giving the calls to the rest of the team of when to swarm in, but the KJ lockdown comes into play, gets a detain on both players, and Jazzican says, that is free as can be. I'll take whatever I can get. The one player that had all the health is wrapped up in a cocoon, and the one singular player that has to get it done is Skelesis on a singular bullet, and well, unfortunately can't make the read or hit the shot. And that's St. Clair closing things out, and the 13-4, one off what we saw a replication of the first two.
My goodness, just how back and forth of a battle, not in the typical zipper we want to see in between rounds, but in maps, in the scoreline on those maps. What is happening here? We get it, win your map picks, folks, but not like this. Don't lose your opposition's map pick like that. Don't let things go so wrong. But yet, it happened, and the Saints, well, they didn't give us a lot of hope exiting map 2, but they gave themselves enough of a glimmer early with that huge lead start they got and the dominant performance in the first half to scream, we are going to get through this with a victory. Whether or not Boise State can stop it, it won't matter. We'll force the point home. And they did. Well-deserved victory. And they needed it for the standings at this point, but the round differential and the fact they needed 3 maps still goes to be said. Boise State is such a scary team when they get their right map under their belt.
And that's going to paint really good signs for them come next split, right? Because sure, they're kind of not really out of the picture. We got to see how things are going with Ohio State and Utah and how all that's going to pan out going forward. But still, I mean, painting a really good picture for them next split as things go. Playoffs maybe not in the picture, but even if it is for them, that map selection, I think, caters a lot more to their strengths than what we see in their weaknesses. Their Lotus not being all that hot. We saw the Abyss being banned by St. Clair purely for the fact it was Boise State they were facing in this matchup. Just good looks overall for the potential of this squad, but unfortunately right here, right now, as things go, just not really the best place for them, not the best time, but hey, there's a whole heck of a lot more time to work with, and definitely a resurgence that could be on the way.
Especially with Pearl coming into the pool. I feel like that's a map that was dominated by controllers, especially your Astros, just being end-all be-all for stall on defense. With that now going out the window, I have to feel like that map's going to really creep over even further to attacking sides, right? And with a team as effective as Boise State is when they get on offense, and guess what, guys? They started on offense on all 3 maps, and we start really work out for them on map 2. I just have to feel like that map is going to be one that teams are going to start target banning against them and being worried about. So maybe this split is done. We don't know. Utah University, or the University of Utah, I should say, they unfortunately are in a state where they haven't won a series, so they're in a bad spot. Turn it over. You got The Ohio State University, they've only won a single one that was against Utah in week 1. So you're looking at the question, are those the bottom 2? How is Boise State going to pan out? Time will tell. We got one more week, folks, before playoffs get underway. But with that being said, we've got an interview coming up after this, so don't go anywhere. To the victors go the spoils. Let's get some questions underway. We'll see if someone here after this break.
Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard. Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of our future matches and choose the players you think will have the biggest impact. Every correct pick earns you points. The more points you score, the higher you climb on that leaderboard. At the top, you'll find prizes waiting for you at the end of the split. It's easy to play, adds excitement to every match, and keeps you connected with the action all season long. So lock in your picks, track your progress, and see if you've got what it takes to top the Division 1 Pick'ems leaderboard.
We complained earlier in the series, Dallas, that we weren't getting nearly enough 3-map full series in Division 1, and so Boise State said, hey, hold my drink, I'd love to show you what we're capable of, and they sent us into a 3rd map. Though they couldn't survive it, still, they sent us into a good series. But with that being said, the victor go the spoils. It's interview time for the St. Clair side, and we brought Jazzy into the booth, so let's welcome on in Jazzy. Congrats on your victory. How are you feeling after that one?
Thank you. Pretty good. It's my second game playing with the team in an official match, so pretty stoked about it.
Okay. Well, y'all performed very well on map 1, but things went wrong on map 2, right? And you were kind of giving us a clue as to maybe what you thought it was there, but was there anything in specific in game that felt like what happened was just so bad that it led you like it's map 3 because map 2 just got out the window?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what happened the second map. I think people were just a little out of it, especially after map 1. It was a long map, so I think having sorry. I think having that little break kind of made us not like super dialed in as much. So yeah.
I mean, fair enough. Definitely rode out a long while there. But I mean, even then, talking about buying, that's going to be one of the maps sticking around with the new rotation. But seeing how things are going, y'all should be a bit of a shoe-in when it comes around to playoffs now, securing that win over Boise State. So, I mean, good looks for y'all there, but it puts you there towards the bottom of the barrel. We did cast that first game with you because we mentioned specifically your breach on Lotus. Now, with that pick still being in play, do you feel like, you know, your role has been impacted, or at least more so your team's kind of pacing too much based on the utility changes that have taken place on that specific agent?
Yeah, I feel like with Breach, it's a little difficult in terms of I haven't really had enough reps with the team yet, so getting like those fundamentals down, the timings down on like Breach stuns and the Breach utility definitely played a part in um how smooth things went. But I think obviously I think we did pretty well on Lotus, especially when we didn't have a lot of practice. So I'm pretty happy with the results.
Right, and that also sets y'all up to have an outstanding ascent as well. I mean, same kind of score line, except for just a 1-round difference. I mean, just great across the board. Put y'all in a good spot, at least in terms of the round differential, looking at the rest of the field. But, I mean, talking about looking forward, because I'm assuming you're probably going to be in play here going forward if things work out well. I mean, because great score lines in the wins definitely spotlight a little bit harder than any kind of losses that are in play. But going into playoffs, seeing the map rotation is going to be played, 2 of those maps that were here today will not be in it. And clearly with you being in other leagues, not really having to deal with those, how are you looking forward to those adjustments? Because if you're at that bottom of the barrel, as I mentioned, you're more than likely to be looking at Maryville pretty soon into that second round if y'all end up making it there. So how does that make y'all feel?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Maryville is a pretty good team. It's going to be a little bit of a hard matchup in my opinion, especially going in. Like I said, I haven't had enough time to play with the team, so
Right.
I think we'll see, how well we'll match up against them. But it should be a fun game, so I'm excited for that.
All right. Well, speaking of fun games, your future is still yet to be written. There's one more game that before playoffs gets underway. So Dallas talks about how you think about playoffs and where y'all are sitting. Y'all have a chance to not sit bottom of that bracket, but in front of you lies a very tough opponent in Stony Brook. How is your team thinking and feeling, and how are you going to prepare for a team as difficult to face as Stony Brook has proven they are with so many of the teams so far in Division 1?
Well, I'm hoping within like the next week or two, like I could finally get some practice in with the team and finally get those fundamentals down. There's Tillo. What's up, Tillo? Shout out Tillo, the IGL. But yeah, hopefully, with more practice and with the team, I'll eventually like get the hang of things. Like I said, second match with the team. I'm hoping, when the time comes, we'll have like the fundamentals down and like the team chemistry going, and yeah.
All right. So still progress to be had. I think that's the going game.
Yeah.
West Virginia came out with a call of confidence saying, we're good at every map. We're fine. We don't have to worry about it. And y'all are talking about building things up and still being a progressing force. I think that's honestly scarier to say that you still have room for
Well, yeah,
improvement.
I think
that's a great mindset.
every team and players have so much to improve on. Like there's no perfect player, no perfect team. So I think it's a good mentality to have.
Dallas.
Yeah, anything's possible. It's Valorant.
True. But that being said, though, to the Victor Go the Spoil here once again, it's not just an interview, it's a chance for you to shout out anyone you're thankful for, to be your team, your family, a gerbil you had in 3rd grade. No matter the case, go ahead and take it now.
Shout out to all my friends, my teammates, my parents, everyone I love. Thank you so much for supporting and watching. Yeah, thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Dazzy. We appreciate the interview. Congratulations to victory. Go celebrate with your team.
Thank you.
All right, Dallas, we've got a pretty good series to finish things off. Unfortunately, we did miss one of the series today, thanks to all the AWS issues that was going on, a whole big outage across the entire nation. It is what it is, but we're happy we could get a second one in. And honestly, what it wanted to do is it went to all 3 maps. So big expectations now heading into next week for the final 4 before we jump on into playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and even then I did get a bit of an insight asking about that game earlier, and there is a chance if it does get, rescheduled at any point in time, if the teams opt in to play for it, it will more than likely, because we were supposed to be here for the game today, we will be on for that one as well. So I'm looking forward to still giving that chance to really spotlight the likes of Utah and, well, the big dogs up there at Maryville. So got to see what they can do one more time.
Yeah, I've said it so many times. I think Utah... they are my favorite team to watch just because of how much room they have for improvement. And it feels like when they're getting close to victory, it's themselves that stops them from getting to it in those moments. And I think if they move out of their own way, they're a scary, scary force. On stage alone, I think is one of those players that holds so much respect for and what they're capable of. But Maryville's a hard opponent, right? The hardest arguable opponent here in Division 1. With that being said, that's all we have for you here today. Make sure to stay tuned to see when that game will be rescheduled too, as well as coming up in the next week, big series before our finals into playoffs, so don't miss out. We'll see you guys next week with more here from Division 1.
Think you know how today's matches will play out? Prove it with Division 1 pick'ems. Follow along and put your predictions to the test. Each week, you can make your picks for both Valorant and League of Legends, or just stick to your favorite game. Predict the winners of